Chapter 944. Shen Miao and Luo Tan returned to the initial thatched hut. Fennel and Star Anise stood under a locust tree and looked into the distance while Tsong Yang and Mo Qing sat under the tree hugging their swords with their brows furrowed tightly. Fennel suddenly said, "They are here." Octagonal Aniseed hurried over and saw Luo Tan and Shen Miao following behind the strange Taoist priest. Luo Tan was still fine, but Shen Miao seemed to have tripped over somewhere. She was covered in mud and her hair was a mess. There was a strange smell coming from her. Fennel and Star Anise looked at each other and had the same thought. Star Anise asked, "Furan, you are..." Just as Luo Tan was about to speak, Shen Miao pulled her sleeves. When she looked up, Shen Miao shook her head at her and swallowed the words that were about to come out of her mouth. Shen Miao said, "Let's go." Priest Qi Yan said, "Since you are in a hurry, there is no need to take the path that you came from. Let me show you a shortcut." He brought the few of them around, and when they reached one side, there was an impressively endless farmland. In these crisscrossed farmland, there was a clearly visible path. Ben Yu once said that the path that the siblings took had farmland and small paths. Now it coincided with the path in front of them. It seemed that the siblings did not take the path that Shen Miao and the rest came from but this path. Qi Yan said, "You all follow this path straight ahead and you will be able to reach the exit." He then looked at Shen Miao and smiled. This priest once told Furan that Furan will face a calamity. Shen Miao looked at him calmly. Priest is trying to say that the calamity is about to appear? The calamity is born in response to heaven's will and the mysteries of heaven cannot be revealed. The priest smiled mysteriously. However, not long later, this priest and Furan will meet again. At that time, one hope that Furan can be like last night and remove all the bugs on the red sleeve grass. At that time, the calamity will have a chance to be resolved. His words were neither yin nor yang and were unclear. The others were confused and Shen Miao also did not understand. However, there wasn't much for him to do here right now. If he didn't make a mistake, including the time when he left and the night he stayed here, today was already the 6th day. That Yuan Guiwan would at best last for 10 days. Moreover, the old imperial physician said that Xia Jingxing's poison had already started to spread and would be in danger in around 7 days. There was no time to linger. After saying goodbye to Qi Yan, Shen Miao and others walked on the path in the field. Just as Taoist priest Scarlet Flame had said, the path was much easier than the one they had walked in the forest the day before. When they were about to board the carriage, Fenxiang could not help but ask, "Furan, what did that priest make you do? What happened last night?" She looked at Shen Miao's sorry figure and could not believe that nothing happened. Shen Miao said, "Nothing much, it is more important to return first." They were the first to board the carriage and saw that Shen Miao was unwilling to talk more. Even though Fenxiang and the rest were suspicious, they were helpless. In addition, Xia Jingxing's injuries could not be delayed and they quickly rode back. In the carriage, Luo Tan asked Shen Miao, "Biao youngest sister, why did you not say anything?" In Luo Tan's view, for Shen Miao to suffer so much because of Xia Jingxing, it was touching no matter what. Even if it was a husband and wife from an ordinary family, they would be able to do this for each other. A young lady from a noble family was willing to kneel down to be a herb farmer and do it for an entire night. Not everyone would be able to do that. Shen Miao suffered but did not tell others and instead hid it. What benefits was there in doing that? Doing all these is not for others to show off. Shen Miao said, "Moreover, if it were to spread out, it would damage the face of the residence of Prince Rui. This matter ends here and you must not tell others." Chapter 945. Luo Tan asked, "Even Prince Rui cannot know?" Shen Miao nodded her head. Luo Tan said, "I know." She then said to Shen Miao, "You rest for a while first." After going back and forth, it would be tomorrow when one reaches Long Yi. You were busy all night last night and did not rest at all. Now you look very haggard. Even if I help you to hide it, one would not be able to hide your appearance from others. Shen Miao nodded her head and closed her eyes as she leaned against the back of the carriage. After being busy all night yesterday, she was indeed sleepy and tired and was almost on the edge. There was no need to hold on and almost immediately fell asleep the moment she closed her eyes. She did not care about the jolting of the carriage. This night's sleep was very short and it seemed that she did not sleep for long before Shen Miao was shaken awake. When she opened her eyes, it was Octagon Anise looking at her. "Furan, young Lady Luo has returned to the residence." Luo Tan also woke up and both of them jumped off the carriage. It was actually the morning of the second day and the sun was already high up in the sky. Shen Miao rubbed her forehead, and when she saw that there was no one guarding the doors of Prince Rui's residence, her heart turned cold. The residence of the Prince of First Rank had always been heavily guarded, and the guards at the door were people from Mou's army. Normally they were very strict, but now that there was no one around, could it be that something happened? Luo Tan also saw it and had a bad premonition in her heart, but she was afraid of making Shen Miao sad, so she did not dare to say a word. It was Mo Qing who said, "Furan, let's go in and take a look first." Song Yang and the rest were Xia Jingxing's subordinates and naturally had a worried expression. When they walked into the residence of the Prince of First Rank, they saw that it was empty and their hearts became more suspicious and uneasy. Shen Miao walked in a hurry and almost bumped into someone. That person jumped in shock and turned back to look, but Shen Miao was stunned. "Furan, you have returned." This person was Uncle Tang. Uncle Tang's clothes were in a sorry state and no longer had the usual astute look. Shen Miao quickly asked, "What happened? Why is there no one in the residence?" "Furan, why did you only return now?" One do not know how the news of Master's life hanging by a thread was spread out. These days there were many people probing openly and secretly. The residents wanted to help to hide it, and the people from the imperial court also came over. It is really a mess. Ji Furan came several times to inquire about your whereabouts and also the emperor. Luo Tan said, "Youngest Biao's sister is also busy helping brother-in-law to look for that expert. Speaking of which, we have already gotten, right?" Uncle Tang slapped his head. "I forgot to tell you a piece of good news. Master is awake." Shen Miao and Luo Tan were stunned at the same time before Shen Miao asked, "Awake?" "Yes." Uncle Tang said, "Furan may not know, but the night Furan left, Zhuzi's wounds suddenly split open. The poison could not be stopped no matter what. The imperial physicians in the palace all said that the Yuan Gui Yuan pill could not save Zhuzi's life. Even young Master Gao couldn't do anything about it. He said that in less than 2 days, Master will be in trouble." Uncle Tang's words were full of twists and turns. Everyone's heart sank. Luan was quick and could not help and could not and said. Wu, Li said. Tan was long and Ruk Ming. Luo, Ji Furan was anxious. Seeing that the entire Long Yi kingdom knew about it, she simply posted a notice outside, asking for doctors who passed by to treat her mistress's illness. They would definitely reward them handsomely. Coincidentally, someone uncovered the notice and invited him in. He gave his master a medicinal herb and young Master Gao refined the herb into a pill for his master to consume. His master's wounds gradually healed and he even woke up in the wee hours of the morning. Young Master Gao and the imperial physician in the palace had seen that Master's injuries were gradually recovering and the poison was also cured. Chapter 946. Uncle Tang finished speaking in one breath and paused before sighing. Everyone said that Master's life should not end like this. 2 years ago, others also said that Master could not make it, but Master managed to pull through. Now that it is like this, it is really heaven's benevolence, and it is also the late Empress who is blessing Master from heaven. When Shen Miao heard that Xia Jingxing's poison had been cured, she was really relieved this time. Ba Jiao and the rest also patted their chests and their suspended hearts were finally put back into their stomachs. Luo Tan looked at Shen Miao and thought that it was not easy for Shen Miao to obtain this stock of medicinal herb from that harsh and strange Taoist priest's hands, but now that medicinal herb was useless. Who asked that passerby to uncover this notice for no reason? But after thinking about it, that person still managed to cure Xia Jingxing and felt that there was nothing wrong with that person. It was just that looking at Shen Miao secretly felt that it was not worth it and felt that Shen Miao had done so much for nothing. Uncle Tang said again, when Master just woke up, he asked Furan where did Furan go. Furan did not allow this old servant to casually speak of this matter, and these days Furan did not return. This old servant was afraid that something would happen and was afraid that Master's imagination would run wild and cause his injuries to worsen, so this was concealed. Shen Miao said, "You did very well." She didn't want others to know that she went to find Qi Yan. On the one hand, she was afraid of being taken advantage of by others. On the other hand, if a person was too sad about something, it would become an obvious weakness of that person. If one day others wanted to deal with Shen Miao, they only needed to lay their hands on Xia Jingxing. Shen Miao did not want to expose her weakness too early. Moreover, Shen Miao did not dare to be sure how Xia Jingxing would view her somewhat rash actions. She only wanted to wait for a few days when Xia Jingxing's injuries were better before explaining everything to him. "I will go and see him first," Shen Miao said. "Furan." Uncle Tang stopped her and said, "Master had just taken the medicine that Gentleman Gao brewed and is resting now. It is not good for Furan to go." Shen Miao muttered to herself and looked at Uncle Tang. Why is there not even a guard at the residence's entrance, and why is it so chaotic? There do not seem to be many people. What is going on? Uncle Tang smiled in shame and said, "Too many things have happened these days." This old servant actually forgot to tell Madam about this matter. Even though the entire Long Yi knew that the Master had been saved and that the Master was safe and sound after walking through a life and death situation, Ji Furan and young Master Ji could not be at ease and had been staying in the Fu for the past few days. This old servant also concealed Madam's whereabouts from them, only saying that Madam went to find a doctor for help. As for the people who saved Master's life, it can be considered as Master's kindness. This old servant placed them in the residence. Today, Master woke up and Ji Furan and the others also went to see him. That benefactor is now sitting in the hall of the mansion. Mrs. Ji and young Master Ji are all in the hall, saying that they want to reward him well. However, my benefactor is not someone who covets power. Previously, I wanted to give them a huge sum of money, but they refused. Then what does he want? Luo Tan asked, "Didn't the results come out?" If it is not to ask for something, why would he want to do it? Uncle Tang looked at Luo Tan and smiled. This old servant's heart is also puzzled. Ji Furan had asked the benefactor, and the benefactor said that he happened to pass by and coincidentally saw the results. He remembered that the benefactor's ancestors passed down a stalk of spiritual herb that could cure 100 poisons. Thinking that this herb could save a life, he did not think much and came to our residence after the results came out. Luo Tan shrugged her shoulders. That is of noble character and unquestionable integrity. I am not able to do that. One have to weigh the things passed down from the ancestors. To save strangers that one has never met before. It really requires boldness. Uncle Tang also smiled. It is indeed so. Then he looked at Shen Miao and said, Ji Furan is also having a headache because of this matter, and this old servant could not make a decision. But since Furan is back, it is good. Furan, come take a look and see what to give them. Chapter 947. Since they are the benefactors, I will go and meet them first. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Are they in the main hall now? Exactly. Uncle Tang said, this old servant is about to head over. Just nice, Furan can also head over. Shen Miao nodded her head and Luo Tan quickly followed. Along the way, Uncle Tang seemed to have suddenly thought of something and said, speaking of which, those two benefactors seem to have just arrived in Long Yi and are not familiar with Long Yi. They said that they are here to look for relatives. Ji Furan thought that in a few days' time, we will help the two of them out and our prince of first-rank residence can also contribute. It would be good if we could post some notices outside. Two benefactors? Shen Miao asked, why are there two? That is a pair of siblings. Uncle Tang smiled. Their age is about the same as Furan's and they are also very outstanding. Ji Furen is warm-hearted and wanted to introduce some talented youths and young ladies to that pair of siblings. They look very sensible, and after coming to our residence for a few days, they are getting along well with the servants in the residence. The servants in the residence of Prince Roy were all trained by Xia Jingxing from the MOU army, and even if they were not from the MOU army, they were all people with firm minds. Shen Miao had been in the residence of Prince Roy for the past few days and saw that these people had their own rules and regulations. It was difficult for a person like Xia Jingxing, who had no regard for rules and was undisciplined, to train up a group of subordinates that were so strict to the point of self-abuse. And to be able to get along well with these people was not something that an ordinary person could do. No matter how warm-hearted one was, there would be a basic level of vigilance and boundaries between people, especially the people from the residence of Prince Roy. One did not know if it was Shen Miao's intuition, but she felt that this pair of benefactors were not simple. Luo Tan was curious. In that case, this pair of siblings are extremely good people. Approximately. Uncle Tang smiled. No matter what, to be able to save Master's life, one would be a guest of honor for life in the residence of Prince Roy. Just as they were speaking, they had already walked to the entrance of the main hall, and upon entering, they saw Ji Furen and the three Darren sitting in the middle of the room. Ji Darren was talking to Ji Furen about something. Seeing Shen Miao following behind Uncle Tang, Ji Furen immediately stood up and quickly walked forward to say, "Jiao Nyang, you're finally back." There were some Furens in the hall, but Shen Miao had never seen them before. Shen Miao looked at Ji Furen with some doubt. Ji Furen noticed her gaze and said in a low voice, "These are the Furens who came to visit Jingxing. It is not easy to send them back during the day, so they can only sit here." Shen Miao understood that Xia Jingxing's position in Longyi was really delicate, and his life and death was related to the life and death of many people in the imperial court. And to see if he was really dead, those court officials could not come forward and let their Furen come to see him in the name of comforting Ji Furen. Comforting was in name, but seeing Xia Jingxing's injuries was real. Xia Jingxing woke up this morning, and most likely these Furens specially rushed over to see if it was real or fake. Madam Ji said, "Where have you been these past few days?" Housekeeper Tang said that you went to find a doctor, but he couldn't find you. I almost couldn't even deal with this group of people. You are finally back. At the end of the words, there was a little complaint. Jingxing is still not awake. I know that you are anxious, so you went to find a doctor, but no matter what, you should accompany your husband's side. When he woke up this morning, he was disappointed not to see you. Now your identity is not an official's young lady, but the Wang Fei of the residence of Prince Roy. One must think of the cause and effect before doing things, as there are many eyes watching. Even though the words were not pleasant to hear, Shen Miao knew that Ji Furen was thinking for her. Moreover, it was reasonable that Ji Furen's blood relation was Xia Jingxing and not her, Shen Miao. Before the reason was explained, her action of leaving without saying goodbye was indeed overboard and unreasonable. Thus Shen Miao did not feel wronged by Ji Furen's words of criticism. Chapter 948. Ji Furen had just finished speaking to Shen Miao in a low voice when a matron in the hall looked at Shen Miao and said with a smile, "Qin Wang Fei has calculated. These few days when we came to visit, we did not see Qin Wang Fei. We thought that Qin Wang Fei was heartbroken because His Highness the First Prince was bedridden and thus did not come out. Our hearts were very worried and were afraid that something would happen. Now that we see that Qin Wang Fei is fine, we are relieved." These words were saying that Shen Miao was not qualified to be Roy Wang Fei. As a Wang Fei, her own husband was seriously injured in bed, and she did not even show her face. She did not stay by the bedside and did not come out to meet the guests. Not only was her movement suspicious, she was also cold and heartless. Ji Furen's expression was somewhat ugly. Shen Miao smiled slightly and said to that Furen indifferently, "The family is in chaos and have troubled Furen to worry." The meaning behind her words was that she did not need to trouble an outsider to worry about her own residence's matters. Shen Miao was a person who would become stronger when meeting strong people. She had to be soft when dealing with Xia Jingxing, that kind of unfathomable person, but she did not need to think too much when dealing with a brainless female. Thus her words were especially sarcastic. That Furin was speechless. But when she turned sideways, her appearance was clearly exposed in front of everyone. One could only hear another Furin exclaiming, "Rui Wang Fei, what happened to you? Why are your clothes so dirty? Could it be that you fell?" Then she suddenly covered her nose and revealed an extremely uncomfortable look. Ji Furin and Ji Darren were surprised, Uncle Tang was also surprised, and everyone's eyes in the hall focused on Shen Miao. Only then did they discover that Shen Miao's clothes were covered with mud and dust and was extremely dirty. Looking carefully, her hair seemed to be a little messy. Even though she had tidied it up, she still looked a little embarrassed. And there was a faint smell coming from her body, but it was like the smell of fertilizer. Those Furins originally did not like Rui Qin Wang Fei, this outsider, and now that there was a topic to talk about, they immediately started talking at once, saying if Shen Miao was anxious in her heart and made a mistake in her actions, or if she suddenly fell down or something. Luo Tan was fuming with anger as she heard it from behind. Only she knew how Shen Miao ended up in such a sorry state, but Shen Miao had warned her that this matter must not be spoken out. Uncle Tang was a little surprised. When he saw Shen Miao, he was preoccupied with official matters and neglected Shen Miao's appearance. Moreover, Shen Miao had always been dignified and noble, and her dressing was meticulous. There was never a time when she did not care about her appearance. Embarrassment appeared on Ji Furin's face. Shen Miao was her niece-in-law, and to say that Shen Miao was not was tantamount to ruthlessly slapping her face. In the midst of the whispers, Shen Miao's expression was the most indifferent, as she did not feel that there was anything wrong with it. These madams were xenophobic and had never seen her as one of their own. For those who were picky, no matter how expensive she was dressed today, those people would not change their opinion of her. Therefore, she did not feel that her sorry state was very embarrassing in the eyes of the crowd. After all, in the future they would not have a relationship of sitting and drinking tea together. Just as Ji Furin wanted to say a few words to smooth things over, she suddenly heard a male's laughter coming from the outer hall. "Brother Li is really talented. I am unable to solve this 9 interlocking rings, but you managed to solve it in less than half an incense stick of time. Other than my third older brother, there is no one faster than you." It was Ji Yushu's voice. Following that, another voice sounded, and it seemed to be a young male's voice. It was very clear but also somewhat hoarse. When put together, it was somewhat special. That person said, "Brother Ji has given way. This one dare not be compared with His Highness Prince of the first rank." Chapter 949. Shen Miao's heart moved, and involuntarily, her heart suddenly tightened into a ball. That clear and hoarse voice was very familiar, but she could not remember who it was, but her soul trembled at this moment. She lowered her head to look at her own hands. The sleeves were very long and only the fingertips were exposed, but those white and tender fingertips that had a few bloodstains because of last night's busy work were trembling violently at this moment. In the next moment, Ji Yushu's voice sounded, "Do not say it like this. When my third older brother wakes up, he will definitely want the both of you to compete. Third older brother likes intelligent people the most, and if you go, third older brother will definitely appreciate it." The curtain of the main hall was lifted and 2 people walked out. Ji Yushu was at the front, and when he suddenly saw Shen Miao, he was surprised for a moment before disregarding the presence of all the Furins and walked over in 3 steps, "Sister-in-law." He then said softly, "You have returned. These days you were not around, and even when I asked Tai Yi, he was not willing to tell me. Where did you go?" Shen Miao did not answer his words, and her eyes stared fixedly at the person who was following closely behind Ji Yushu. It was a young male who looked to be in his early 20s. His facial features were very plain, so plain that one would not be able to see any special features, but inexplicably attracted one's gaze. This was because his entire body exuded the aura of an intelligent person. He was wearing a rosin-colored robe and green cloth boots. His pair of eyes were like the summer sun, warm and slightly tipsy but with a faint fanaticism. Shen Miao's body tilted and almost fell down. Luo Tan's eyes and hands were quick to support her waist from behind, as she thought that she was too tired the night before and could not hold on any longer. Ji Furen saw her looking at that young man and said, "This is one of the benefactors who saved Jing Xing." Gentlemanly, the young man bowed to Shen Miao and smiled. "This one is Li Ku." Shen Miao shouted thousands of times in her heart. She would never forget this name and would never forget this pair of seemingly warm and innocent eyes. In just a few years, he had grown to become Fu Xiu Yi's left and right arm, and was able to stand up to Pei Lang as an equal, this Mei Furen's biological brother, Li Ku. She had never thought that after such a long life, she would be able to see the man in front of her again in this life. But in this strange country, in her mansion, in front of a room full of people, Li Ku had appeared so openly in front of her. Her face suddenly turned pale. On one hand, she rationally reminded herself that she couldn't do anything strange in front of these madams. On the other hand, she stared fiercely at Li Ku. She couldn't wait to rush up and tear this person into pieces, drink his blood and eat his flesh. Mei Furen and her brothers. The reason why she ended up in such a tragic state in her previous life was because of this pair of siblings. Mei Furen won Fu Xiu Yi's heart and Li Ku's fowls and dogs rose to heaven. Li Ku was always at Fu Xiu Yi's beck and call while Mei Furen leaned against a big tree to enjoy the shade and was even more favored. Both siblings relied on each other and were promoted. Mei Furen thought of ways to marry out Wan Yu and Li Ku thought of ways to depose the crown prince. Mei Furen caused the first household of the Shen family to be exterminated and Li Ku had a deep friendship with the second and third household Shen Gui and Shen Wan. This bad karma was something that could not be escaped in this lifetime. But Shen Miao did not think that it would be him who was Xie Jing Xing's benefactor. She suddenly remembered what Uncle Tang said, that is a pair of siblings. Shen Miao's fierce gaze made Ji Furen stunned for a moment. She asked, "Jiao Nyang, isn't there two benefactors?" Shen Miao smiled gently and slowly moved her gaze away. In her tone of voice, there was a treachery that even she herself did not notice. "Where is the other one?" "Just now the maid poured tea on her and I let her change her clothes." Jiao Nyang has a lot of clothes and there are no other female clothes in the residence. It is not good to take the maid's clothes, so I took Jiao Nyang's clothes to deal with it. Ji Furen said. Just as she was speaking, she saw Ji Yushu looking outside the door, coming. That female had a hibiscus face and a willow waist. Her appearance was comparable to a fairy. She wore a thin gown and slowly walked over. The noon sun came in because she pulled open the curtains, and it made this young lady even more beautiful. Her light smile was dazzling, and it was as if Shen Miao was separated by a lifetime, and saw the brilliance that she saw before her death. Shen Miao stood in the room with disheveled clothes and a pale face. The way she stared at that female was like a hungry wolf, like a fierce tiger, like a venomous snake lying in wait for an opportunity to strike. That person wore her clothes and came to her residence. She saved her husband and appeared in front of her with a swagger. The old enemy of the previous lifetime, the death enemy of this lifetime, the bad karma could not be cut off and was once again pushed to the edge of fate. Mei Nyang greets Princess Consort. The female said. Mei Nyang? No, you are not Mei Nyang. You are the blood of the Emperor of Ming Qi, Fu Xiu Yi, the imperial consort of the new crown prince, Fu Ming. She is also my mortal enemy, Mei Furen. Chapter 950. Ji Furen smiled. This young lady is the one who took out the medicinal herb, young lady Li Mei. Shen Miao stared at her. The reason why Mei Furen was able to be favored in the inner palace for so many years was because Fu Sheng was able to stand firmly as the new crown prince. 3 palaces, 6 courtyards and 72 concubines, which one of them was easy to deal with? Fu Xiu Yi favored her alone, so she was not someone that an ordinary female could deal with. Those who were more beautiful than her were not as smart as her, and those who were smarter than her were not as beautiful as her. When it was time to advance, she would advance, and when it was time to retreat. She was obviously scheming, but she always gave others a feeling that she acted according to her nature. Arrogant but also guarded her own sense of propriety. She had beauty but knew when she was in her most beautiful posture. The concubines in the inner palace once discussed behind her back that if she wanted to, there was no man in this world that would not submit to her skirt. Just like at this moment, she came in wearing Shen Miao's clothes. Even if it was a dignified and somewhat conservative dress, it was worn by her in a lively manner and naturally made Shen Miao look even more wretched. Mei Furan had a pair of extremely charming eyes, like a cat that woke up in the afternoon with a careless laziness. Shen Miao's gaze on her was too strange that she could not help but look at Shen Miao. She was rather surprised, but it was just right at a point where it would not be rude. Her surprise was caught by Ji Furan and Ji Yu Shu, who were closest to her. Both of them looked at Shen Miao at the same time and were startled when they saw Shen Miao's eyes. But in the next second, Shen Miao lowered her head, and when she raised her head again, it changed into a smiling expression, as if those were all an illusion. "It is a neat person," Shen Miao said softly. Uncle Tang could not help but frown. Shen Miao's words were like those in the palace. No, those main wives in the residence were picky and contemptuous towards their newly married concubines. But Shen Miao was not an unreasonable person. She did not even put Lu Wanner's matter in her heart, so how would she be sensitive to be jealous of a person that she had just met for the first time? Luo Tan sighed in her heart. Previously, Uncle Tang had said that the pair of siblings were also very outstanding. When she saw Li Ku, she didn't think much of it and felt that he was at most passable. Only when she saw Li Mei did she know what it felt like to be outstanding. Luo Tan had always felt that among all the females she knew, the most unique was Shen Miao. Putting aside her looks, Shen Miao had a dignified and imposing air in her bones, which was a beauty that any female would envy. This Li Mei, however, had a completely different feeling. If one were to say that Shen Miao was a blooming peony, the king of the flowers, then this female would be a poppy. She had a strong temptation, charm, beauty, and there was a trace of unexplainable evil beauty. Shen Miao said, "Is young Lady Li from the Great Liang?" "Exactly." Li Mei looked at Shen Miao in surprise and smiled. Just arrived at Longyi. Miss Li and brother Li are from Qinzhou." Madame Ji laughed. "As soon as I arrived at Longya, I exposed the notice at the city gates and saved Jing Xing's life." "Just arrived and you exposed the notice?" Shen Miao looked at Li Mei with a smile that was not a smile. "This should be saying that your highness is lucky? Or is it that young Lady Li is lucky?" This time everyone in the room could hear the hostility in Shen Miao's voice. Li Mei was also startled. Li Ku took a step forward and smiled as he bowed to Shen Miao. "Since His Highness the Prince of First Rank is fine, this one and older sister will leave first. These days in the residence there have been many disturbances and have offended." This Li Ku's words were neither servile nor overbearing. It was as if he had heard Shen Miao's words and acted out of anger due to his pride. Ji Furan was stunned for a moment and did not have the time to ask Shen Miao what was going on. She subconsciously wanted to embrace Li Ku and Li Mei. "What disturbances? You have saved Jing Xing's life, how can it be said that one has offended? Speaking of which, we have not repaid." Chapter 951. But Li Mei smiled and said, "Ji Furan had already told you before that it was a coincidence that we came here to take down the results and did not think too much at that time. This herb is used to detoxify and save people's lives. Us siblings did not use it, so it was a waste to hold on to it. Things that can save people naturally have to be used to save people. This can only be considered that this herb and His Highness Prince of First Rank are fated. As for the rest, one cannot say more." When the other Furans in the hall heard this, they clicked their tongues in wonder. She was beautiful and had a good temperament. It was rare that she was generous and did not covet power. She looked like a good person, but on the contrary, Shen Miao inexplicably made things difficult for others. She did not have the bearing of a Prince Rui's consort. Li Mei then looked at Shen Miao and said apologetically, "It is just that this commoner's clothes were dirty just now, thus wearing Wang Fei's clothes. One hoped that Wang Fei would not mind. After this commoner has washed it clean, one would definitely return it to Wang Fei personally and there would not be a trace of wearing it. Shen Miao looked at her fixedly. When Shen Miao saw Mei Furan, it was after she returned to Ming Qi from the Qin country. She had long expected that there would be many more concubines in the palace, but the only one who gave birth to a son was Mei Furan alone. At first she did not believe that Fu Xiuyi's cold temperament would dote on a female, but after seeing it with her own eyes, she had no choice but to admit it. Mei Furan was deeply doted on by Fu Xiuyi, so from the start when she faced Shen Miao, she never lowered her head. Even when she lowered her head, it was a fake, perfunctory, and one that did not have a trace of happiness. Even if Shen Miao was the Empress, in the inner palace, it seemed that Mei Furan was a head higher than her, just like how Fu Sheng was always more doted on than Fu Ming. And right now, that woman who always gently raised her chin and looked at her with ridicule, actually had a humble attitude and called herself a commoner girl, and called her princess. How big was the world, so big that one's life could be repeated twice? How small was the world, so small that after 2 lifetimes, one could still meet enemies from the previous lifetime? Li Mei saw that Shen Miao did not reply and was somewhat embarrassed. She smiled and wanted to pull Li Ku away. Ji Furan wanted to persuade her, but in the end Shen Miao was the matriarch of the residence and she had no reason to make a decision without Shen Miao. Wait, Shen Miao suddenly said. Li Ku and Li Mei were surprised for a moment before both of them turned their heads over and saw Shen Miao smiling gently like water. She said, since one saved His Highness' life, one is the benefactor of the entire residence of Prince Rui. If the 2 of you leave now, won't the Rui Qinwang residence be criticized by others and be said to be cold-hearted? How can you say that the Wang Fu is cold-hearted? Li Mei shook her head and smiled. This is our idea. One must wait for His Highness to recover before leaving. Shen Miao smiled gently, otherwise, the residence of the Prince of First Rank cannot afford to give up halfway. There was some doubt in the meaning of these words. If the legendary medicinal herb that was passed down was actually fake, then Xie Jingxing's old illness would relapse in a few days. At that time, where would he go to find him? Ji Furan and Ji Yushu were somewhat embarrassed. Shen Miao was not an overbearing person, so why was she so harsh towards this pair of siblings? They were the benefactors and no matter what, one could not use this kind of attitude. Even if there were suspicions in one's heart, there was no need to say it out loud. But Shen Miao knew that this pair of siblings would not stay because of the gratitude of the residents of the Prince of First Rank, but they would definitely stay because of the suspicions of the residents of the Prince of First Rank. Because in their life, they wanted to leave a good name after doing all the bad things and would not allow themselves to have a stain. How could they allow others to pour a basin of dirty water on them for no reason? Sure enough, when the words were said, Li Ku's face revealed an indignant expression as he said, "Do not worry. We will definitely be here and personally witness His Highness the Prince of First Rank recover." Chapter 952. Shen Miao smiled gently, "That is good. The residence of the Prince of First Rank owes you such a favor. If one do not stay, how can we repay?" One moment she was suspicious and the next moment she was talking about repayment. This kind of ambiguous attitude made one somewhat unable to make heads or tails of it. Li Mei looked at her thoughtfully and Shen Miao noticed her gaze and smiled again. "I still have some matters and will not accompany everyone here." She then said to Ji Furan, "Emu, help me to look for and bring along all the Furans." Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly thought of something and stopped in front of Li Mei. He said with a smile, "I also think that this dress suits you very well, as if it was made for you. Since it fits you, there is no need to take it off and return it to me. Just take it as a gift from me." Shen Miao said to gift clothes, but it did not seem to be gifting clothes. It was as if she was bestowing something. Even though Uncle Tang was usually slick, he was somewhat confused by Shen Miao's inexplicable actions. It was only after Shen Miao left that he looked at Luo Tan. Luo Tan stuck out her tongue, "Do not ask me. I also do not know." She then turned around and left. Ji Furan looked at Li Mei and Li Ku with some shame. these days the princess has been worrying about Prince of First Rank's illness and most likely is somewhat sensitive. One hope that both of you can be more understanding. One can naturally understand the heart of a fist. Li Mei smiled. Then let us go inside first to talk. Ji Furan smiled. Ji Yushu also looked at Li Ku and hesitated for a moment before saying, older brotherly, please. Shen Miao returned to the room, and when Jingzhe and Gu Yu saw her return, they first went up in surprise. Furan, you have finally returned. These days these servants have been anxious and feared that something bad happened to you. When they saw Shen Miao in a sorry state, both of them were stunned at the same time. Jingzhe asked, Furan, what is going on? Did you suffer from any grievances? Shen Miao's clothes were dirty and messy and her expression was strangely ugly. Upon closer inspection, there seemed to be a sense of loss, as if she had suffered a huge blow. It was still Gu Yu who was quick-witted and said, Furan, this servant will first prepare some water for you. You should first wash up and then drink a bowl of hot porridge. Left and right highness are fine, and after you have a good rest, it is not too late to slowly think about things. She then pulled Jingzhe to prepare some hot water for Shen Miao. After the hot water was prepared, Shen Miao sent the two away and sat in the wooden bucket. And the water was just warm, but at this moment Shen Miao felt that it was as cold as ice. Why would Mei Furan appear in the Great Liang? How did she become Xie Jingxing's savior? By a freak combination of factors. She had endured untold hardships to not kill Mei Furan the moment she saw her. It was also because this was the residence of Prince Roy and she was unable to explain her actions. But no matter how, no, and, her, she, her. Shen, in. She, I, and I, rank, you, Shen, you, and. In the previous life, Shen Miao went to the Qin country to be a hostage, and when she returned, Mei Furan had already entered the palace. One heard that Mei Furan was the daughter of an official that Fu Xiu-yi met during the Eastern expedition, but now that Fu Xiu-yi had not started the Eastern expedition, naturally he would not be able to meet Mei Furan, and now Mei Furan was in the Great Liang. Could it be that in the previous life, Mei Furan was also in the Great Liang? According to this time, Mei Furan had not met Fu Xiu-yi and had already met Xie Jingxing? Then why did Mei Furan finally become Fu Xiu-yi's favored concubine, and why did she come to Ming Qi? Could it be that this was also Xie Jingxing's intention? Shen Miao could not help but shiver. Chapter 953. In her previous life, she and Xie Jingxing did not meet and did not follow Xie Jingxing to Longyi. Xie Jingxing also did not come to the Ming Qi's tribute banquet. Shen Miao was Fu Xiuyi's wife and Xie Jingxing was unconscious in Longyi like now. Mei Furan and her siblings who were passing by saved him, so they should not have a hostile relationship. If Mei Furan was originally a Great Liang person, but at the end became the favored concubine of the Ming Qi emperor, could it be that she was also a spy? Just like how Xie Jingxing was obviously a prince of the Great Liang but became the little marquis of the residence of the Marquis of Lin and in Ming Qi's Ding capital. Could it be that Mei Furan was a spy sent by the Great Liang? But in this case, Mei Furan did not need to give birth to Fu Xing for Fu Xiu-yi and finally made Fu Xing the crown prince. Her brows knitted tighter and tighter, but compared to that, what made her most afraid was whether Mei Furan and Xie Jingxing were allies in the previous lifetime. If in the previous lifetime Mei Furan was the person that the Great Liang's imperial family sent to Ming Qi, no matter what, Shen Miao's ending was inextricably linked to the Great Liang's imperial family. Fu Ming and Wan Yu that could never be redeemed, then how would she and Xie Jingxing deal with each other? As she was lost in her thoughts, Shen Miao did not even know when the water in the wooden bucket turned cold. It was Jingzhe who could not let it go and came over to knock on the door to call her. Only then did Shen Miao leave. When she touched the water, it was strangely cold. She wiped herself clean, put on her clothes and went out. The first thing she saw was Luo Tan. Luo Tan came forward and asked, "Biao youngest sister, do you not like that Li Mei?" Shen Miao said, "Why say so? You're always very polite to people. But this Li Mei is very strange, just like how he treated Chang Ziqing." Luo Tan thought about it, that Chang Ziqing was not a good person at the end. Could it be that this Li Mei is also not one? Speaking of which, one always feel that you do not like this Li Mei more than Chang Ziqing. Shen Miao was twisting her hair with a handkerchief as she lightly said, "If I say that she is a bad person, would you believe it? Is she really a bad person?" Luo Tan was stunned. "But she doesn't look like one." Shen Miao shook her head. No matter what she said, before there was any evidence, everything was useless. She said, "Are you going back?" Luo Tan was startled. "Aren't you going to see brother-in-law?" Shen Miao paused and said, "Today one is very tired and want to sleep early." "All right." Luo Tan nodded. "You've been running around for a long time these past few days. You've lost a lot of weight. Why don't you take a good rest? I won't disturb you anymore." After thinking, he said, "If you feel that there is something wrong with that Li Mei, you can also tell me. In this great Liang, only we have the same blood in our bones." After Luo Tan left, Shen Miao's face turned cold and said to Jingzhe, "Call Mo Qing over for me." It was rare for her to be this serious, especially today. There was a faint murderous aura that made Jingzhe and Guyu not dare to ask any more and went out to look for people without a second word. Mo Qing quickly walked in and Shen Miao got people to close the door tightly. When there was no one else around, she asked Mo Qing, "Where is that pair of siblings currently staying in the residence?" Mo Qing thought that Shen Miao had something important to instruct him and was slightly startled when he heard it before saying, "Staying in an empty room in the side courtyard." "You kill them for me," Shen Miao said. Mo Qing was stunned. Ever since he started following Shen Miao, Mo Qing had always seen Shen Miao's situation and it was not too much to describe it as abyss of fire. There would always be people scheming and people shooting arrows everywhere. In such an environment, Shen Miao had never suffered a loss before. She instructed Mo Qing to do this and that, and actually it was a tooth for a tooth and an eye for an eye. But it was the first time that she directly said, "You kill them for me." Chapter 954. Mo Qing looked at Shen Miao and hesitated for a while before asking, "Furan, they have a feud with me, a blood feud that is absolutely irreconcilable. If we don't get rid of these two, there will be endless troubles in the future." "Kill them for me," she said. Before Mo Qing could answer, a voice was heard from outside the window, "This is not a good plan." Both of them looked back and saw that Jingzhe had left in a hurry and did not even close the window. Coincidentally it was dark in the evening and one did not know when there was someone in front of the window, but it was Pei Lang. Shen Miao gestured for him to come in. Pei Lang walked in and glanced at Mo Qing before shaking his head at Shen Miao. "Rashly killing is not a good strategy." Shen Miao coldly stared at him. Mei Furan's appearance made her recall the dark days in the past and she did not have a good expression towards Pei Lang. Pei Lang rubbed his nose in confusion. He coughed twice and said, "That pair of siblings are currently living in the prince's fu. If you kill them now, the prince's fu will not be able to escape responsibility. Such a large prince's residence with countless guards couldn't even protect the lives of a pair of brother and sister. Do you think others would believe it? They will only say that it was done by someone from the prince's residence. Secondly, what you did outside today was too much. You probably don't know, but there are rumors outside that you are jealous of Li Mei's beauty and deliberately made things difficult for her. Previously, I didn't know why you were like this, but now that I heard that you have a grudge against them, I understand. Since you have enmity with them, you shouldn't show it. Once you show it and let others see it, if something happens to the siblings, the first person to be suspected will be you. Third, you found Mo Qing to kill for you. This shows that you do not trust others, including Prince Roy's subordinates. But was Mo Qing really a match for the other guards in the residence? Even if Mo Qing's martial arts skills were higher, it would be difficult for 2 fists to fight against 4 hands. Normally when one was caught, Prince Roy would definitely ask you the reason. You let Mo Qing take action but did not tell Prince Roy, so there must be a reason that could not be told to others. If you're discovered, you won't be able to keep your secret. Therefore, this plan is not a good one, Pei Lang said in one breath. Shen Miao stared at him for a while and suddenly laughed. Mr. Pei, are you always so rational? Without waiting for Pei Lang to speak, he laughed coldly. That's true. If you aren't rational and aloof, how can you be above others? Pei Lang did not understand her words and only heard Shen Miao speaking again. What you said is right. It is indeed so. I cannot rashly kill people in the residence of a prince of Qin. Moreover, to let them die so easily, it would be too easy for these 2 people. Mo Qing did not speak, so Shen Miao said to him, you go out and help me to investigate clearly first. I want to know clearly the background of this pair of siblings, no matter big or small. Mo Qing complied and left. Shen Miao took a deep breath. The enemy was right in front of her, but she could not make a move now. This kind of heart-wrenching feeling was really uncomfortable and it almost made her want to vent her anger on others. Mo Qing complied and went out. Pei Lang looked at Shen Miao and thought for a while before asking, you have deep resentment towards this pair of siblings. Shen Miao sneered, why do you say such words? One have never seen that you want to take someone's life the moment you come. He looked at Shen Miao with some probing, this shows that you have fear and guard against them in your heart. This pair of siblings are very powerful. Shen Miao's heart jumped as she looked at Pei Lang in front of her. Anger rose in her heart and she asked, Teacher Pei is always able to understand the thoughts of others. Then do you know what kind of deep enmity I have with them? Are you willing to tell me? Chapter 955. They owe me 2 lives that cannot be taken back. Shen Miao said, even if I kill them 10,000 times, it would not be enough to compensate. Pei Lang was shocked by the obvious fierceness in Shen Miao's eyes and said, I can help you. Shen Miao stared at him, why should I believe you? These words made Pei Lang somewhat surprised. In the past few days, he clearly felt that Shen Miao's attitude towards him had eased up and seemed to have let go of some things. He always felt that the relationship between them was not as tense as before. But the Shen Miao today was like a hedgehog with its spikes raised up and was on guard. Her attitude towards him had returned to the past and was even more distant than before. As if they were enemies. Pei Lang knew that this was definitely related to that pair of siblings. He pondered for a moment before asking, heard that that pair of siblings are from the Great Liang. In the past, you should have never been to the Great Liang and have never seen both of them. How could there be such a deep enmity with them? Teacher Pei. Shen Miao interrupted his words, I have already said everything that I can tell you. You are also very clear about my attitude towards this pair of siblings. I do not expect that Teacher Pei would be able to help me strategize, but would request Teacher Pei not to interfere and not to tell this matter to others. In Pei Lang's heart, there was suddenly a kind of unbearable anger. He also had a body of pride and was willing to lead a carefree life but was persuaded by Shen Miao using Luing to enter the imperial court and became Fu Xiuyi's people, and then inexplicably became a spy and left for a foreign country. And when his sincerity was treated as speculation with ill intentions, he also had the impulse to turn around and leave. But when he saw Shen Miao's cold eyes, he felt that he could not get angry. It was as if when he saw her, he would have an inexplicable guilt attack him. He hesitated for a moment before saying, You do not trust me. Shen Miao coldly said, I do not trust anyone. Pei Lang left and Shen Miao sat back at the table. It was as if she had used up all the strength in her body and felt very weak. Li Mei and Li Ku were living in the residence of Prince Roy with such an identity, and one could not kill them but could only trap them in this residence of the prince of first rank. This great enmity must be avenged, otherwise she was not fit to be the mother of 2 children. Just as she was thinking, Jingzhe pushed the door and walked in and said to Shen Miao, Furan, His Highness just woke up and wants to see Furan. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment and her face revealed a complicated expression. After a moment she said, I know. The great Liang's imperial family, Xia Jingxing, Mei Furan siblings, all of these possible relationships were all guessed by Shen Miao, and the more she thought about it, the more terrifying it was. If those frightening conjectures were true, Shen Miao did not know how she should react. Mei Furan's appearance disrupted her plans and mood, and she even found it hard to face Xia Jingxing. She was afraid that others would see the hatred in her heart and was also afraid that Xia Jingxing would confirm the terrifying guess in her heart. The bedroom was filled with a strong medicinal fragrance, and the servants coming and going were all busy with their own things. Now that Xia Jingxing was awake, there were many things that were worth thinking about and his condition needed to be taken care of. Gao Yang was carrying his medicine box as he walked out and was surprised for a moment when he saw Shen Miao. He just woke up once in the morning and asked about you. His wound hasn't healed yet, so you should go along with him. Shen Miao complied and pushed the door to enter. Xia Jingxing was only wearing his middle clothes and an outer robe as he was half leaning on the couch reading a book. One did not know if it was because of his injuries, but these days he looked thinner and the contours were even more distinct. When he was quiet, he was like a noble son of a noble family as he elegantly flipped through the book. One would not be able to tell that a few days ago he was walking on the line of life and death. Shen Miao wanted to enter, but just as she took a step out, she was somewhat hesitant, as if she took this step, she would have to face a problem that she did not dare to face. She was afraid of the answer and instinctively wanted to avoid this problem. However, in life, there was no problem that could be avoided forever. Xia Jingxing's eyes did not lift up as he lightly said, since one is here, why not come in? Shen Miao paused and clenched her fists before slowly walking in. Nearing the couch, she then sat down and said, are you all right? Hearing that Uncle Tang said that you were already awake, one thought that you wanted to rest and did not disturb. Most likely Xia Jingxing's body was not fully recovered as his voice was still hoarse. But his lips suddenly hooked up and one did not know what kind of tone it was. Interesting. Shen Miao looked at him and his eyes were still on the book as his voice was somewhat cold. You do not dare to look at me? How could it be? Shen Miao smiled gently, is it that the illness has muddled you? Xia Jingxing also smiled gently, but the smile did not reach his eyes. With a pa sound, he closed the book and threw it to the side before turning his head. Ever since Shen Miao came in, this was the first time he looked at Shen Miao. His eyes were sharp, but there was a hint of anger as he asked, Shen Miao, is it that if I did not let anyone call you, you would not come over? Chapter 956. Shen Miao, is it that if I do not let others call you, you will not come over? The atmosphere in the room was cold and his gaze was as sharp as a blade. Even though his face was pale, his aura was never weak. Shen Miao said, you are thinking too much. Are you hiding something from me? Xia Jingxing asked. Shen Miao shook her head, no. How to say it? In all fairness, this lifetime was completely different from the previous lifetime and Xia Jingxing might not really have any involvement with Mei Furan. But to pull Fu Ming and Wan Yu into it, she was unable to look at this matter rationally. If she did not have any shred of feelings for Xia Jingxing, then perhaps it would be much simpler. The most frightening thing was that the feelings would be mixed with other things. Hate would not be hate, love would not be love, and at the end it would breed countless fears and one would not even have the courage to face the problem. Xia Jingxing looked at her deeply and Shen Miao was afraid that some of her secret thoughts would be seen, so she said, since your body is better, then you should rest more. The night is very long, take the medicine and sleep early. She stood up and turned to leave. You are that impatient to leave? Xia Jingxing's voice came from behind and there seemed to be some unseen grievances. These few days one heard that you did not come to see me. But the first time I opened my eyes, I thought that you must be frightened. His lips pulled up and his eyes drooped down. It is me who is thinking too much. Shen Miao did not say anything and pushed the door open to walk out. After walking a few steps, she suddenly stopped. Xie Jingxing would definitely discover her abnormality. He was such a sensitive person, and if he were to discover it, her secret would not be able to be explained. Sun Ziqing's matter was after all related to her family, but she had never seen Li Mei and younger brother before, and they were Xie Jingxing's benefactors. It was because the entire Long Yi knew about it that nothing could happen to Li Mei and younger brother, and once she was suspected, it would even throw dirty water on the residence of Prince Rui. On one side was a possible disaster, and on the other side was to eradicate the enemies of the previous lifetime as soon as possible. It was torture for Shen Miao to let them live in this world. It was also related to Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao felt that after being in the Great Liang for so many days, she finally met her biggest calamity. Ba Jiao carried the empty medicine bowl over and was surprised when he saw Shen Miao. Why did Furen come out so quickly? Won't you accompany master for a while longer? No need. Shen Miao said, all of you take good care of him. She walked forward without turning her head back. 2 days later, Mo Qing came to Shen Miao with the news that he had inquired. He said, this pair of siblings are from Qinzhou. They are the children of a merchant family, but they were adopted. The merchant's wife had died early, and the master had passed away not long ago. Before he died, he told them that they weren't his biological parents. After burying his adoptive father, they came to Longyi to look for their relatives. But there aren't any clues. Impossible. Shen Miao stood up. Mo Qing said, there is only so much information that can be inquired. This subordinate let people inquire in Qinzhou, and all the neighbors know that they had watched this pair of siblings grow up. Are you sure that Li Mei did not go to Mingqi? Shen Miao's nails unconsciously dug into her palms. She had never traveled far before, and this was the first time she left a place outside of Qinzhou. Mo Qing said. Shen Miao closed her eyes. These 2 days, Li Mei and Li Ku were in the residence of the prince of first rank and would occasionally go to the Ji residence to chat with Ji Furen, but did not do anything. Shen Miao asked, then did they see your highness? That they did not. Without passing the message, no one can personally see your highness, even if it is the benefactor. Mo Qing answered. Chapter 957. I know. You can go down and continue to pay attention to this pair of siblings. If there is any movement, immediately inform me. Shen Miao said. Mo Qing complied and retreated. After Mo Qing left, Shen Miao sat back on the chair and her gaze gradually deepened. Since Mo Qing was inquiring, he would definitely not miss the slightest clue. In this kind of situation, he was able to find out such news. Either this lifetime was really different from the previous lifetime, from a Ming Qi official's daughter to a great Liang merchant's daughter, it was really strange. Either that or this pair of siblings were too good at concealing themselves. Their background was clean, and there were no traces of them at all. In this way, even if she told Madame Ji that these two people had ill intentions, no one would believe her. The Shang siblings grew up in Qinzhou and came to Longya for the first time to look for their relatives. Who would believe that they wanted to murder the prince's mansion? She got up and originally wanted to go and see Xie Jingxing, but when she thought that the Li siblings were still using the name of Xie Jingxing's benefactor, and that the great Liang imperial family and the Li siblings might have a connection, she felt that it was difficult to face. In the end, he didn't take that step. Weiyang Palace. When Empress Xianda heard the palace maid in front of her finish speaking, she finally let out a breath. A relaxed smile also appeared on her face. She said, since he's awake, at least it's more daunting than dangerous. Come, take the 200-year-old ginsengs in Ben Gong's box to the prince's fu, let the prince nourish his body. She suddenly thought of something and said, does the emperor know about this matter? His Majesty already knows, the palace maid said with a smile. That's perfect. I'll talk to him about this. Empress Xianda was about to stand up. The palace maid hesitated and said, His Majesty is currently at Imperial concubine Jing's, probably celebrating. Empress Xianda's movements paused, and then she smiled warmly and said, if that's the case, then there's no need for me to go. An imperceptible trace of sadness flashed through her eyes. However, Your Highness, when this servant heard that His Highness had woken up, I heard some of the madams discussing that. Say what? They said that the Qin Wang Fei doesn't seem to like the siblings who saved His Highness the Prince's life and is making things difficult for them. Perhaps it's because she's jealous that the other party is more beautiful than her, or perhaps she doesn't want His Highness to be saved at all. At the end of her sentence, her voice gradually weakened, as if she also knew that her words were disgraceful. Nonsense! Empress Xianda shouted harshly, how can Qin Wang Fei not want His Highness Qin Wang to be saved? The palace maid was so frightened that she didn't dare to raise her head. Empress Xianda calmed down after this shout. She said coolly, you want to say that Qin Wang Fei is jealous? This consort feels that this pair of brother and sister aren't ordinary people to be able to stir up such a storm just by being a benefactor. Weiyang Palace was silent. No one spoke. Empress Xianda sat on the high seat. Her gaze changed, but she seemed extremely lonely. For more than 10 days, Shen Miao locked herself in her room and carefully thought about the best of both worlds. However, no matter how she thought, she could not be sure that there would not be any future troubles. The opportunity that Li Mei and younger brother appeared in this lifetime placed the two of them in a very sensitive position. It was almost a natural barrier that Shen Miao could not move at all. And in these 10 days, she had been deliberately avoiding Xie Jingxing. Because every time she faced Xie Jingxing, there would be countless suspicions in her mind. If the Li Mei and younger brother siblings were really related to Xie Jingxing in the previous life, Shen Miao really did not know how to face Xie Jingxing. She was afraid that their fate as husband and wife would come to an end. Chapter 958. Because with Wan Yu and Fu Ming between them, she could not act as if nothing had happened. This morning, when Shen Miao woke up, her expression was very ugly. Jingzhe and Guyu could see that something was wrong with her. After asking a few times, Shen Miao only brushed it off perfunctorily, but her heart was bewildered. Last night, she had a dream the entire night. She dreamt that she was in the Ding capital's Kuan-Ning Palace. Wan Yu and Fu Ming were eating fruits and chatting in front of her. As they were talking, Wan Yu and Fu Ming's mouths started to bleed at the same time. She panicked and went to look for the imperial physician. When she looked up, she saw Mei Furan and Fu Xiu-yi walking over. Fu Xiu-yi ordered people to tie her up and threw Wan Yu and Fu Ming, whose life and death were uncertain, into the palace. Then a big fire burned the entire Kuan-Ning Palace. The raging fire licked the Kuan-Ning Palace and quickly engulfed Wan Yu and Fu Ming. She screamed at the top of her lungs but saw Mei Furan smiling lightly and said to her, "You have lost." Shen Miao suddenly woke up from her dream. Even though the summer sun was in the morning, it was almost as hot as midday, almost dazzling one's eyes. Shen Miao broke out in cold sweat and her entire body was drenched in sweat. However, Wan Yu's and Fu Ming's desperate expression filled her mind, making her feel restless. Just as she walked out of the courtyard, she saw Li Mei who was walking out. When Li Mei saw Shen Miao, she immediately stopped and bowed to her. Shen Miao's eyes darkened. Every time she met this female in front of her, she had to restrain her killing intent. Especially that dream last night, she almost could not help but reach out to strangle the other party to death. Her fingertips that were hidden in her sleeves pricked her palm and there was a slight pain, which made her somewhat awake. Shen Miao looked at Li Mei and said, "Li young lady, where are you going?" Her tone was stiff, and there was a strange undertone in it that could not be concealed no matter how hard she tried. Li Mei smiled, "His Highness the Prince of First Rank has awakened and summoned us siblings over." Second younger brother had already gone over and this commoner girl was also planning to rush over. She then looked at Shen Miao with some shame, after disturbing the residents for so many days. After seeing His Highness the Prince of First Rank, this commoner girl should leave. The princess consort has taken care of us a lot, but she still hasn't said a word of thanks. Shen Miao sneered in her heart. She had never let anyone take care of these two people, so it should be Ji Furan's idea. In addition, everyone in the residence saw that they saved Xia Jingxing's life, so they were more polite to the two of them. Why are you talking about leaving? Shen Miao said indifferently, we have not properly repaid you. Li Mei shook her head. We came to Longyi to look for our relatives. Since His Royal Highness has recovered, we should leave. Shen Miao's lips twitched and she did not even bother to respond with a smile. Shen Miao really could not believe Li Mei if it was to look for relatives. Who knew what they came to Longyi for? Li Mei looked at Shen Miao and suddenly said in a soft voice, Princess Consort, has this common girl offended the Princess Consort in some way? The Princess Consort does not seem to like this common girl. When the words were said, Shen Miao's attitude towards Li Mei was somewhat obvious. Towards the benefactor who saved Xia Jingxing, other than seeing her once on the day of her return, Shen Miao did not see her again. Shen Miao's actions were appropriate and gentle, so it was definitely not because she had forgotten, but it was intentional. As for why it was like this, it made one puzzled. I indeed do not like you. Shen Miao raised her chin. She could feign civility to her enemies, but she could not do this to Mei Furen. She wanted to directly express her hatred. If it was not for the residence of Prince Rui, if it was not because she was unable to explain it to Xia Jingxing. She chuckled, do you want to know why? Chapter 959. Li Mei looked at her in puzzlement. That pair of charming eyes were filled with puzzlement and seemed to contain some sincerity, totally different from the contempt in Shen Miao's memories. Instinct, Shen Miao said coldly. Then without turning her head back, she brought Jingzhe and Guyu to walk past Li Mei. Li Mei stood there for a while, shook her head, and left. And Shen Miao, who was standing far away, looked at her back view with a cold expression. Jingzhe and Guyu did not dare to say a single word. They did not know why, but they always felt that when Shen Miao faced this unfamiliar Mei Furen, she seemed to become very scary. That kind of terror was something that they had never experienced before from Shen Miao. About to leave? Shen Miao whispered to herself before coldly saying, can you leave? She turned around, call Mo Qing over. Mo Qing quickly came to Shen Miao's room and said, Furen, this subordinate has a matter to report. Shen Miao said, put your matter aside first. I have more important matters. Mo Qing was puzzled, Furen please speak. Kill Li Mei and Li Ke for me. Mo Qing was stunned. Shen Miao said, I have thought about it again and again. Even though this matter is not appropriate and perhaps it would bring disaster to the residence of Prince Rui, but if these two people are left alive, it would be a bigger variable. I would rather be charged with other crimes than to let these two people live and become a bigger threat in the future. These two wolves haven't fully grown their claws yet. Once they're fully grown, it won't be easy to kill them. I don't want to think about this matter. I just want to ask you, can you think of a way to kill them? Shen Miao asked in a low voice. Her voice echoed in the room, as if it came from the depths of hell, but with a deep determination. Wan Yu and Fu Ming's dream reminded her that she could not be indecisive. Since there was no way to have the best of both worlds, she would kill them first. Since this pair of siblings were only the children of a merchant, it would be much less troublesome to kill them. If they were to find someone to rely on in the future, it would be even more difficult. Moreover, Li Mei also said today that they would be leaving Prince Rui's residence soon. Where could they go after they left? Could they go to a place that could protect them? Shen Miao thought that one must pay attention to the timing of killing and could not drag it any longer. As long as Li Mei and Li Ku were alive, she would not be able to get over it and would suspect Xia Jingxing. In the choice between her previous life and this life, she chose to kill Li Mei and Li Ku now. As for what role the imperial family of the Liang had played in her previous life, she did not want to pursue it. This was the biggest concession she could make for Xia Jingxing, and also the only concession she could make. Mo Qing suddenly knelt down and said, forgive this subordinate for being unable to do it. Shen Miao stared at him. This subordinate wanted to talk to Madame about this matter. I have just inquired about the news that the relative that Li Mei's siblings are looking for is the current Prime Minister Yi Maokai. Li Mei's siblings are Yi Furan's children. Mo Qing said, the Yi family has already sent people over. Shen Miao staggered back and said, what did you say? This subordinate has failed Madame's trust, please punish me. The room was silent for a long time and Mo Qing did not dare to look up. He did not know why, but he could almost imagine the disappointment in Shen Miao's eyes, and that kind of powerlessness made him not have the face to look at Shen Miao's expression, as if he was unable to bear this helplessness. One did not know how long had passed before Shen Miao's voice was heard from above. Her voice was desolate and tired as she said, do not blame you. They came prepared and I was not determined, thus I hesitated and missed the opportunity. The rebirth of the malicious Empress of military lineage. Chapter 960. But. Her voice suddenly turned sharp, as if a sharp blade had appeared from its scabbard, sharp and murderous. Even if there is the Yi family, I must take these 2 lives. Long Yi was different from the Ding capital. The Ding capital was located in the north and the scenery was the most flourishing in winter when it was the most magnificent. Long Yi was located in the south and the best season was summer when the night was as cool as water and the stars were like the Milky Way. The courtyard was the most secluded one, but it couldn't block out the night. A pot of tea and a game of chess seemed to be the most satisfying thing in the world. The green-clad male drank alone under the moonlight, as if he was a green bamboo that grew in the forest. When Shen Miao came to the courtyard, she saw such a scene. Pei Lang sat in front of the stone table, drinking tea and playing chess. In fact, he was often like this. Even when he became the country tutor, his temperament was still as cold as before. Shen Miao always felt that it was not a good decision for Fu Xiu-yi to let Pei Lang enter the court. With Pei Lang's temperament, he was more suitable to live a carefree life. He read books, loved saints, liked to play chess, flowers and bamboos. All of these were elegant things, but what he did was the methods of internal strife in the court. Teacher Pei. Shen Miao sat down opposite him. When Pei Lang looked up and saw that it was Shen Miao, he was slightly surprised. That day, Shen Miao mercilessly cut off the relationship between the both of them. No matter how much Pei Lang tolerated, he was after all a male and had self-esteem. These days he did not take the initiative to look for Shen Miao. Moreover, Shen Miao was not one who would take the initiative to lower her head. Now that she appeared in front of him, Pei Lang's mood also fluctuated slightly. Previously Teacher Pei said that he would help me. Does this sentence still count now? Shen Miao did not intend to have a heart-to-heart talk or play chess with him and directly asked. Which matter are you talking about? Pei Lang put down the teacup in his hands. Everything, but the current matter is that I want the lives of Li Mei and younger brother. This is very difficult. Pei Lang smiled bitterly. It is more difficult than you imagine. Shen Miao said, these 2 siblings have a relationship with the Yi family and said that they are Yi Maocai's children. Most likely it will soon become Yi Mei and Yi Ku. It is impossible to simply kill them secretly. But I can't let them go. She said, can't and not, don't want to, which meant that no matter what, she wanted the lives of the siblings. Pei Lang frowned, but why must you take their lives? Shen Miao's smile was somewhat cold as she said, not everything must have an answer. You ask me why, I still want to ask other questions. If I can't find the answer, how can I tell you? Pei Lang looked at the chess pieces on the table and smiled after a while. I understand. I won't continue to ask you the reason, but what do you want me to do? You are not good at killing people, but I know your ability. Shen Miao said, since it has become Yi Mei and Yi Ku, then the one to deal with is the Yi family. I want to deal with the Ye family. No one knows better than you how to topple a family in the imperial court. I want you to be my advisor. Pei Lang was startled for a moment before shaking his head. I do not understand your meaning. Even though I am by Prince Ding's side, it is only to give advice on political matters and do not have the experience of overthrowing the enemy. How can you say such words? Shen Miao smiled slightly, but her heart was thinking that she naturally knew. Pei Lang looked like a gentle and refined person, but his methods were completely different and ruthless. When Fu Xiuyi just ascended the throne, Prince Zhou's men were eyeing him covetously and tried to make a comeback, but at the end they were all defeated by Pei Lang's hands. Chapter 961. I only ask you, will you help or not? Shen Miao asked. Pei Lang muttered, the Yi family's current situation in Long Yi is very subtle. The emperor of the Great Liang wanted to use the Yi clan to deal with the Lu clan. The Yi clan did not have any children, so they were easier to control. But if you have a pair of children, the structure will be broken again. Perhaps the Yi family will change sides, perhaps they will fight with the Lu family, perhaps they will ally with the imperial family to deal with the Lu family. The appearance of Yi Mei and Yi Ku is an extremely subtle point. The royal family's attitude towards the Yi family would also affect the Yi family's attitude towards the royal family. At this time, the royal family could not act rashly, so they had to be more polite to the Yi family. And you are the princess of Prince Roy's residence. Prince Roy is the emperor's younger brother and is tied to the imperial family. If you want the lives of the Yi siblings, the great Liang emperor will be the first to not agree. Shen Miao stared at him. I naturally know this, so the method I want you to think of is for the royal family to take the initiative to deal with the Yi family. Whoever moves first loses. The royal family is watching, and so is the Yi family. If you really want the lives of the Yi siblings, you must first find a mistake in the Yi family and grab hold of the Yi family's weakness. It's best to stir up a dispute between the Yi family and the royal family. Shen Miao asked, what about the Lu family? Pei Lang was stunned. What if I let the Lu family and the Yi family fight? Pei Lang shook his head. You only think that way because you want to protect the prince's residence. But I must warn you that it is impossible to have the best of both worlds. The Lu family is not a fool. At this time, they will not take the initiative to fight with the Yi family. Shen Miao said, I understand. You really do not hesitate to offend the imperial family to deal with the Yi family? Pei Lang frowned. If you really oppose the imperial family, then between you and Prince Roy. Pei Lang did not continue speaking as there would inevitably be animosity. Even though he found it strange that Shen Miao's attitude towards Yi Mei and her brother was so unyielding that she would not hesitate to perish together with them. What did the Yi Mei siblings do? I do not have a second path to take. Shen Miao's eyes drooped down. Perhaps I do not have fate with the imperial family. In the past and present lifetime, she was unable to escape the sacrifice of the imperial power. But so what? How do you plan to sow discord? Pei Lang asked. This is the matter that I want to discuss with you. Shen Miao said. The Great Liang and Ming Qi were two entirely different battlefields, thus one was not familiar with the various forces in Long Yi and now knew even less. She was unable to face Xia Jingxing calmly but was not willing to let her enemy live well under her eyelids. After thinking about it, even if she had to perish indiscriminately, she would take revenge for Wan Yu and Fu Ming. And Pei Lang was her only ally. Pei Lang was good at scheming and plotting. He was the best at analyzing the situation of the imperial court. Slandering without leaving a trace, easily sowing discord, this imperial preceptor was truly an expert. She wanted to join hands with Pei Lang to reap the lives of these two people. Even if Yi Jia's brother and sister have a huge backer, she will also bring down the backer. This discussion lasted deep into the night. When Shen Miao felt that it was time to return to her courtyard, it was already very late. Only Jing Zhe and Gu Yu accompanied her. She returned to her own courtyard and pushed open the door to enter the room. Just as she was about to take off her outer clothes, her movement suddenly paused and she turned her head over. Xia Jingxing was hugging his chest as he sat in front of her desk, flipping through a book in boredom. Why did you come over? Shen Miao asked. You can get down from the bed? Today Xie Jingxing was going to see Li Mei and her brother, but Shen Miao did not want to think about it and even more did not want to see it. She was afraid that once she saw this scene, she would involuntarily suspect some terrifying possibilities. What the eyes do not see, the heart does not grieve, but she did not expect that Xie Jingxing would actually come knocking on her door. Xie Jingxing smiled lazily and did not answer her question. It is so late. Why did you only come back now? Could not sleep. Shen Miao said, so strolled outside. Xie Jingxing threw the book in his hands onto the table and said, Oh? Did you go to drink tea and drink with Pei Lang? This posture, it seemed that he was here to denounce her. Shen Miao's mind was filled with Yi Mei's matter as she asked with a frown, What do you want to say? Half a month. Xie Jingxing said. Shen Miao stared at him. He also stared at her and his complicated gaze made Shen Miao's heart palpitate for a moment. He said, I have been awake for half a month and you only came over to see me once. Did you forget that you are the Wang Fei of the residence of Prince Roy and my wife? He said. Shen Miao did not speak as this could not be explained at all. But Xie Jingxing stared at her and his gaze was disappointed and slightly angry as he said, I waited here for you for an entire night and you were drinking tea and playing chess with Pei Lang. Shen Miao, could it be that you like that scholar? Shen Miao's heart suddenly surged with an unknown fire. She was entangled with Yi Mei's matter and could not sleep at night. Because there was a residence of Prince Roy in the middle, she did not dare to rashly move, thus she missed the best opportunity and was unable to kill the enemy. In such a quagmire-like place, Xie Jingxing was actually able to put her and Pei Lang together. She said, What does that have to do with you? Xie Jingxing pulled Shen Miao in front of him. He pulled so hard that Shen Miao almost fell down and was supported by him. Xie Jingxing pinched her chin and said word by word, If I want you now, then there would be a relationship. Shen Miao frowned and said, Perhaps our alliance is too hasty. Xie Jingxing paused and looked at her deeply, perhaps? He suddenly let go of his hand and stood up all of a sudden. With his back facing Shen Miao, he said lightly, Is your heart made of iron? In your eyes, there is only use and schemes, but I am a living person. Actually, from the beginning to the end, your heart has never been moved. He said indifferently. Chapter 962. Xie Jingxing left. Shen Miao was sitting alone in front of the table when Jingzhe walked in and looked outside. Just now she was in the outer room and these two people's voices were not deliberately lowered, so she could hear every single word that was said. Now seeing that Shen Miao's expression was not good, even though her heart was perturbed, she could not help but speak, Furan, you are too distant with His Highness. Shen Miao did not speak and Jingzhe continued, originally before Furan married into the residence of Prince Qin Wang, you treated His Highness better than now. These days it seems that you are deliberately hiding from His Highness. One who is ill would be particularly sensitive, especially after His Highness escaped from death. One fear that his heart would be even more subtle. Furan is not concerned at this time, His Highness would inevitably feel uncomfortable. After Furan persuade him with some kind words, it should be all right. Furan must not be too sad. Shen Miao said, I know. You can leave. Jingzhe then withdrew. After Jingzhe left, Shen Miao then pressed her forehead. She was struggling to face Xie Jingxing, but in all fairness, Xie Jingxing was also innocent in this. That sentence, actually from the beginning till the end, your heart has never been moved right, made her shudder. Shen Miao could not remember when she was moved by Xie Jingxing. Perhaps it was when he saved her life at the Wanli Lake, or perhaps it was when he took off his mask in front of Princess Rong Xian in the princess residence, or perhaps it was on the day of their marriage when he stretched out his hand on the tall horse, or perhaps it was even earlier. Even earlier, when she set fire to the ancestral hall, the first time she met Xie Jingxing, and the confrontation with Xie Jingxing. The feeling of being moved was too far away. In her previous life, she was only moved by Fu Xiu Yi and the price was heavy. With the previous example, she did not dare to be easily moved, and even if she had to give out her feelings, she would be stingy, careful, and care about the gains and losses before giving out. However, Xie Jingxing was different. One did not know if it was because he was so arrogant or reckless, but he squandered his feelings. In this marriage, the two of them did not contribute equally. But Shen Miao had also given her everything that she could give. Until now, because she was tempted, she could not deal with Mei Furan without scruples. Admiration and suspicions were intertwined and she was unable to face Xie Jingxing. As for Xie Jingxing, he was probably completely disappointed in her in his heart. She was sitting in front of the table. The herb that she had obtained from Taoist priest Qi Yan with great difficulty was casually thrown aside in a box. Because no one had taken care of it these days, a thin layer of dust had fallen on it, and no one paid attention to it anymore. For the next few days, Shen Miao's days were somewhat strange. One did not know what happened between Luo Tan and Gao Yang. Most likely Luo Tan was bothered that Gao Yang had lied to her. When Gao Yang saw that Xie Jingxing's poison was almost cleared, he left the old imperial physician in the prince's residence and pulled Luo Tan to an unknown place. Ji Furan and Ji Yushu also returned to the Ji residence. As long as Xie Jingxing was fine, there was no meaning for them to stay in the residence of the prince of first rank. For some reason, Pei Lang seemed to have caught a cold, so he rested in the room and did not go out. Thus Shen Miao was suddenly left alone by her side. The servants in the residence of the prince of first rank could see that Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao were in a cold war, so they were very careful with their work. In a moment, everyone in the residence of the prince of first rank felt insecure and the atmosphere was even heavier than when Xie Jingxing was unconscious. It was at this time that people from the Yi family came. People from the Yi family came to recognize Yi Mei and Yi Ku. The Yi family seemed to know that Shen Miao did not like Yi Mei and Yi Ku, so they did not mention this matter to Shen Miao. Today, he was just here to inform them. Chapter 963. It was just that Shen Miao, as the princess of Prince Roy's residence, still had to meet her. In the main hall of the prince's residence, Yi Furan was talking to Yi Ku and Yi Mei was sitting at the side with a slight smile. Yi Maocai's head was slightly raised as if he was saying something and the person sitting in front of him was Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing was wearing a silver-purple robe and most likely because his injuries were not completely healed, he was sitting lazily and casually. Listening to Yi Maocai's words with a smile that was not a smile, one could not clearly see what it meant. When Shen Miao came in, the first person to see her was Yi Mei and Yi Mei quickly stood up to greet her. However, Yi Ku did not move. Now that they were the children of the Yi family, their status had risen and naturally there was no need to greet the princess of the prince like in the past. It was just that Yi Mei wanted to greet but Shen Miao did not even help and just accepted it. A trace of unhappiness flashed in Yi Furan's eyes but Yi Ku did not show it. Yi Maocai swept a glance at Shen Miao and saw everything. Shen Miao walked to the other side and sat on the main seat beside Xie Jingxing. Yi Maocai got up and said, "These days in the prince's residence, Mei, and Ku have troubled us. Thanks to the princess' care, one is very grateful." Shen Miao smiled gently, "One cannot bear the word troubled. Speaking of which, ye young lady and gentlemen, ye are his highness's benefactors. It is somewhat excessive to say, troubled." Yi Maocai laughed and said a few words to smooth things over but heard Shen Miao's words change and asked doubtfully, "But how did Li young lady and gentleman Li become Yi young lady and gentleman Yi? It is somewhat surprising that the relatives that the two of them are looking for are the Yi family." When she spoke like this, Xie Jingxing only played with the teacup in his hands and did not stop nor comply, as if he was watching from the sidelines. Yi Maocai was somewhat unsure of Xie Jingxing's meaning and hesitated for a while before smiling. "It is shameful to speak of it, but it was something that happened more than 10 years ago. At that time when my lowly wife was giving birth, the midwife in the residence was disloyal and received orders from a traitor to change my son from a dragon to a phoenix. They were actually a pair of brother and sister, but they had been replaced by a baby girl who had died young. In the past few years, with the thought of not washing their dirty linen in public, they had never made it public and had only investigated in secret. This time, the two of them entered Long Yi and accidentally came to the prince's mansion. Later on, they said they were looking for their relatives, so they met. Yi Maokai was born with a fair complexion and no facial hair. Looking at the amiable scholar, his words were even more sincere, as if he had taken out 120% of his sincerity. He looked at Shen Miao and laughed. It is said that Mayor and Kur saved His Highness the Prince of First Rank's life, but in fact our Yi family should be the one thanking His Highness. If it was not for this freak combination of factors, our family would not be able to reunite. Exactly. Madame Yi laughed as well. Ever since Shen Miao met Madame Yi, this was the first time she saw Madame Yi laughing so happily. It was as if she was genuinely happy. No one would suspect that Yi Mei and Yi Ku were her long-lost children. But Shen Miao could not do it no matter what. In her previous life, she was a daughter of an official's daughter in Ming Qi, but in this lifetime, she became a great Liang person. One feared that the entanglement of this was not that simple. Yi Mei and Yi Ku sat at one side. Yi Mei was beautiful and Yi Ku was astute. With one look, one could tell that they were rare talents. What was even rarer was that they kept their propriety and did not speak rudely or use their identity as Xie Jingxing's savior to do anything. Because of that, others could not have any ill feelings towards them. That's right. Fu Xiu-yi was an astute and almost cold person. He was so selfish that he did not even hesitate to lay his hands on his own children, but he only doted on Mei Furen. It could be seen that she had her own uniqueness. Chapter 964. That is really a coincidence. Shen Miao smiled gently and casually said, Qin province is not far from Long Yi. The Yi family had searched for more than 10 years and could not find it, but this time they found it upon entering the residence of the Prince of First Rank. She looked at Yi Mei. It is really fate. Is it not, young lady Yi? Yi Mei smiled, of course. The residence of the Prince of First Rank is a blessed land. She did not seem to hear the meaning behind Shen Miao's words and instead readily agreed. Shen Miao shifted her gaze and looked at Yi Maokai. Today Yi Darren came over. Yi Maokai quickly said, I am here to bring them back to the residence. Finishing, he blushed, as the biological father, it is our fault to let the siblings wander outside for so many years. Now that the family is finally reunited, naturally one cannot let them live in the wilderness. Today they will be brought back to the residence and be placed on the jade plates tomorrow. From now on, they are the descendants of my Yi family. When he finished, there was some excitement in his expression. Looking at Yi Mei and Yi Ku again, there were faint tears in their eyes. Shen Miao however felt that this play was lame and tasteless. Yi Maokai complimented Xie Jingxing a few more times, but it was because of Yi Ku and Yi Mei that he wanted to build a friendship. This attitude was somewhat subtle. The imperial family of the Great Liang had the intention to rope in the Yi family to deal with the Lu family, and the Yi family's position was crucial, thus they had always been neutral and did not express their stance. Logically speaking, if Yi Mei and Yi brother returned to the Yi family would have more confidence to contend with the Lu family, and naturally there was no need to compromise and submit to the imperial power. Now this attitude revealed that they wanted to stand on the side of Emperor Yonglu. After all, the relationship between the residents of Prince Roy and Emperor Yonglu was very close, and by pleasing the residents of Prince Roy, it was tantamount to expressing loyalty to Emperor Yonglu. Shen Miao's heart gradually sank. This was naturally not what she was happy to see. Once the Yi family really stood on the side of Emperor Yonglu, if she were to bring down the Yi family from behind, it would be cutting off Emperor Yongli's support. Not to mention Emperor Yonglu, even Xie Jingxing would not be willing. But if she were to form an alliance with the murderer who killed her children, she would not be able to escape the word disgusting in this lifetime. However, Xie Jingxing's attitude was thought-provoking. He listened to Yi Maocai's words carelessly and answered in an indifferent manner, perfectly avoiding questions that required him to express his attitude. He was neither up nor down, neither clear nor clear, fooling Yi Maokai around in circles. Yi Maokai and Madame Yi stood together and talked for a long time. It seemed like they had told Xie Jingxing everything. Thinking back, it seemed like Xie Jingxing did not reveal anything. When the Yi family expressed goodwill to the imperial family, even if the imperial family did not immediately shed tears of gratitude, they still had to reciprocate. But looking at Xie Jingxing's attitude, it was as if he was watching a show, lazy and not paying attention. It even made people doubt if he understood the hint in Yi Maocai's words. Yi Maokai and his wife were somewhat anxious and exchanged glances with Xie Jingxing. Everyone said that this Prince Rui of the Great Liang was slippery but very thorny and watertight. Today, when they got so close to him and left the court, it still made one unable to fathom him. This kind of attitude made Yi Maokai and his wife unable to get angry and also had no reason to be at ease. They originally wanted to put on airs, but in the end, they did not know who did it and Xie Jingxing gained the upper hand. Unknowingly, they were led by the nose by Xie Jingxing. Shen Miao was also somewhat surprised by Xie Jingxing's attitude. Thinking about it, the Yi family's sudden goodwill was already fishy and Xie Jingxing was not a brainless person, so naturally he had to investigate it clearly. But this made her heave a sigh of relief. As long as Xie Jingxing did not clearly express goodwill towards the Yi family, or in other words, looked at the Yi siblings in a different light because they had saved their lives, her heart was much calmer. Chapter 965. In the end, no one was able to convince the other. It was the first time Yi Maokai met with such a neither soft nor hard nail like Xie Jingxing. Seeing that the sky was getting dark, Yi Maokai did not say anything. He did not see Xie Jingxing express a clear attitude and knew that today's trip was a waste and there was no point in staying any longer. But his family's intentions had been conveyed and he brought Yi Mei and Yi Ku to leave. Xie Jingxing instructed Uncle Tang to send them off. Just as he was about to leave the main hall, Madame Yi seemed to have thought of something. She turned around and asked, "Prince Hua's birthday is in a few days, right?" Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. She did not know about Xie Jingxing's birthday, so the one in Ming Qi was definitely not true. As for Great Liang's side, she had never heard Xie Jingxing talk about it. However, Madame Ye's eyes were sharp. She saw Shen Miao's slightly surprised expression and asked with a smile, "Why does it seem like Qin Wangfei doesn't know?" Yi Mei and Yi Ku also stopped and Yi Mei looked at Shen Miao with a subtle gaze. As a wife, she didn't know her husband's birthday, and it was an outsider who told her this. The relationship between husband and wife was strange. Xie Jingxing sat in the living room and drank his tea. It was as if he did not hear what Madame Yi said. Shen Miao smiled faintly and replied, "Does Madame Yi still remember Miss Yi and young Master Ye's birthdays?" This. Madame Yi was puzzled. Shen Miao did not give her a chance to speak and smiled. After missing more than 10 years, Yi Furen should first think of how to compensate young Lady Yi and Gentleman Ye's birthdays. The meaning behind her words was, take care of your own matters before worrying about other people. Do not be bored after eating your fill. Madame Ye's expression turned ugly after being mercilessly slapped in the face. Yi Maokai seemed to be a little embarrassed. Yi Mei pulled Yi Ku and bowed to Shen Miao before hurriedly bidding farewell. Looking at their departing figures, Shen Miao took a deep breath. Yi Mei and her brother had finally succeeded. Before she made her move, the Yi family had finally succeeded in sheltering them. From now on, if he wanted to suppress Yi Mei and Yi Ku, he would first have to deal with the Yi family. This was much harder than just assassinating a pair of siblings. Especially when it was mixed with the complicated interests of the imperial family of the Great Liang. Pulling one part would affect the whole body, and it would be even more difficult. It really made one feel indignant and unhappy. She thought and hesitated for a moment before turning back to look at Xie Jingxing, thinking about how she was angry yesterday. Because of the relationship between Wan Yu and Fu Ming, she vented her anger on him. Today he did not treat Li Mei and her brother specially, so he must be rational. Perhaps they should have a serious talk. These days, her performance was indeed a little too terrible. But just as she turned her head, she saw Xie Jingxing expressionlessly standing up and walking past her as if he was a stranger. Not a single word was spoken. Shen Miao's sentence of, "I have something to tell you," was stuck in her throat and could not be swallowed for a long time. When Gu Yu and Jingzhe behind saw this, they looked at each other in dismay. Both of them knew that Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were in a cold war these days, and if the master was not good, naturally the servants would not be happy. But just now Shen Miao obviously had the intention to reconcile, and Xie Jingxing was so cold, one feared that his young lady's heart was hurt. Jingzhe and Gu Yu had followed Shen Miao for so many years, especially in the recent 2 years, they had a clear understanding of Shen Miao's temperament. Her self-esteem was extremely strong. With Xie Jingxing like this, even if Shen Miao had the intention to make peace, she would not take the initiative to do so. Jingzhe said in a low voice, "This is bad. If this goes on," she had just married over, "how would she live in the future?" Gu Yu also muttered, "One must think of a way." When Shen Miao returned to the room, the more she thought about it, the more upset she felt. Xie Jingxing's attitude towards a stranger was really very vexing. She had been an empress in Ming Qi for many years, and other than Fu Ming and Wan Yu who wanted to curry favor with Fu Xiuyi, she had never given in to others. She had a strong temperament, else she would not have fought with Mei Furan for so many years. Chapter 966. With Xie Jingxing's current attitude, it made her thoughts of having a good talk with the other party fade. Both of them were inflexible, but Xie Jingxing usually disdained to fight with others and she herself hid it well, so when they tangled with each other, it was a tragic sight to behold. Just as she was thinking, someone knocked on the door and it was Ba Jiao who pushed the door open. Ba Jiao placed a plate of pastries on Shen Miao's table with a smile. "This is the new pastries made in the small kitchen and was specially made according to Ming Qi's taste. Furan should try and see if it is to your taste." Because of the Cold War between Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing, the servants in the residence were also cautious. The people from the Mou army would naturally side with their own masters, just like Jingzhe and Gu Yu would definitely stand on Shen Miao's side. Ba Jiao and Fennel had already left and one did not expect that Ba Jiao would come back at this time. One feared that the drunkard had ulterior motives. Shen Miao looked at him and said, "You have something to say to me?" Ba Jiao smiled at once and scratched his head. "This servant is stupid and was seen through by Furan before I said anything." "Furan, this servant was found by Jingzhe and Gu Yu to persuade you." Outside the door, Jingzhe and Gu Yu's expressions suddenly became strange. This Ba Jiao said that she was stupid, but she usually looked very smart. She said that she was smart, but now she was pouring beans out of a bamboo tube and bringing the two of them out. They really didn't know what to say. Shen Miao laughed in spite of herself. "What do you want to persuade me about?" They all said that Furan's temperament is very cold. After Master was injured for so many days, Furan ran out on her own without a trace and did not come to see Master. After Master woke up, he only came to see once. Everyone felt it was unfair for Master, so these days Furan has been cold to Furan. One hoped that Furan will not blame. Shen Miao shook her head. "What they said is the truth. But Furan's temperament is not cold." Ba Jiao smiled. "Furan just does not like to say it out. Otherwise she would not bring us to wander around the forest for an entire night and must find that expert to ask for herbs for Master." "But why didn't Madam tell Master about this?" Shen Miao said blandly, "The person who saved him was not me, and at the end the medicinal herb was useless. It was a futile effort and did not have any effect, so it is not counted as merit. What is there to talk about? She also did a lot of things for Fu Xiuyi in the inner palace. She reduced it to simplicity and helped Fu Xiuyi win a good reputation in the world. In the end, she could not match the decree that Li Ku issued for Fu Xiuyi. If he said it out loud, he would only be laughed at and pitted. It would be better not to say it at all." Octagon Anise frowned and said, "But those are your kind intentions." Shen Miao looked at her. "Feelings?" Octagon Anise nodded. Regardless of whether you managed to save Master or not, even if the herb was useless in the end, your intentions were genuine. If you hide your intentions, how will Master know? Madame wandered in the forest for a whole night, and when she insisted on moving forward, those were her kind intentions. In this servant's opinion, Madame's intentions are even more precious than those medicinal herbs. If Madame hides your intentions because the medicinal herbs are useless, wouldn't that be throwing away a watermelon and picking up a sesame seed? Shen Miao was startled. Octagon Anise said with a smile, Madam, your intentions are more useful than the medicinal herbs and can cure Master's illness. Must the intentions be said out loud in order to be known? Shen Miao looked down. If there is a heart, how can one not understand? Octagon Anise shook his head. It may be so for others, but it is different for Master. Oh. You also know that Master's life was not smooth sailing. The Mou army was built by Master, and this servant has followed Master for a long time. Master usually faces schemes every day, but those are from outsiders and enemies, so there is nothing wrong with it. But as one of us, one would hope to be more frank. Octagon Anise looked at Shen Miao seriously. Madam, you are Master's wife and the person closest to Master. If you do not even explain your intentions, Master may be aware, but he will not be sure. The more precious something is, the more demanding it is. Master values your intentions, so he would be angered. He does not doubt you but himself. Chapter 967. He was not doubting you but doubting himself. Shen Miao suddenly jolted, as if a piece of ice in her heart had blossomed because of this simple sentence. From it, soil was born, a trickle of water was born, and a long green field was born. Master would also doubt himself, doubt that he is not good, doubt that he is not as good as others, and doubt that you are dissatisfied with him. When all these doubts are added together, it would become doubt of your intentions. Like this, do you still want to hide your intentions? Shen Miao's eyes slightly drooped and her heart started to rise and fall. Xie Jingxing was such a proud person that even in the midst of thousands of troops, he would still casually smile. He lived in the filthiest and most chaotic court strife, and at such a young age he had to carry a heavy burden that did not belong to him. His relatives, brothers and friends, he was neither close nor distant, and no one believed in his sincerity. This made him seem like a person who did not care about anything. However, it made people forget that he had the most straightforward sincerity and the naivety of a youth. Just like how he treated Su Mingfeng, Princess Rong Xian, and even the Marquis of Linan. He was so proud that he refused to explain everything but was doing everything behind the scenes. This kind of person, in the past life or this life, would not mix together with Li Mei and Li Ku. She should not have doubted at all. Her distrust came from her lack of confidence in herself. Just like Xie Jingxing's suspicion towards her, it came from his suspicion towards himself. Shen Miao closed her eyes. Just like what Octagon Jiao said, when one was facing the most precious thing, they would always be extremely demanding. She was moved by Xie Jingxing, thus she was afraid that Xie Jingxing and Mei Furan were involved, and Xie Jingxing's concern for her made her become a thorn in the other's side. She seemed to have done something wrong, but fortunately there was still a chance to make up for it. Octagon Jiao saw the change in Shen Miao's expression and suddenly smiled, "Furan, hope that you can coax Master well. These days Master's temperament is very cold and the Mou army would not be able to take it." Shen Miao shook her head and smiled, "I know." But Octagon Jiao hesitated for a moment before asking, "Furan, do you have any grudges with the siblings of the Yi family?" Shen Miao was surprised for a moment. "Why do you say that?" Everyone in the prince's residence knew about her cold attitude towards the Yi siblings. Everyone had their own guesses, but this was the first time they met. Everyone said that Shen Miao was jealous of Yi Mei's beauty. Although it was ridiculous, they could not find any other reason. Why would the octagonal Anis ask such a question? You are too cold to that pair of brother and sister. These days, Master had sent people to investigate the background of that pair of siblings, but it seemed that nothing was amiss. So, Madam? Shen Miao's heart moved. Firstly, it was unexpected that Xia Jingxing would secretly investigate the background of Yi Mei and her brother. Secondly, the background of this pair of siblings, even Xia Jingxing could not find anything wrong with it, so they were really innocent. They do have some grudges with me, Shen Miao said, but this matter is of great importance and will not be mentioned for the time being. The octagonal Anis thoughtfully nodded his head and looked at Shen Miao with a smile. It is good that Madam has thought it through. Furen must not hide your intentions. Right now Master is muddle-headed from anger and can't see it, but that day when we accompanied Furen to look for the strange Taoist, we all saw it clearly. Anyone with eyes can see Furen's intentions, so there's no need to hide it. He then winked at Shen Miao. Master's birthday is on the 3rd day of the next month. In previous years, there would be a banquet at the Bai Xiao Lu in Longyi. This servant had secretly asked the housekeeper, and it is the same this year. If Madam wants to prepare a birthday gift, it is best to prepare it for Master in these few days. Before Shen Miao could speak, the octagonal Anis threw another sentence. Master is a person that is easy to coax. If it is not possible, Madam can personally make a bowl of longevity noodles and Master's anger will be appeased. Of course, the most important thing is not to hide your intentions. Master will be even happier. He ran away like a wisp of smoke. Shen Miao looked at the 2 doors that she had knocked open and was startled for a moment before laughing out loud. Her heart was much more relaxed than a few days ago. Since some things could not be avoided, then it was better to face them directly. For example, a blood feud that could not be severed. For example, unspeakable intentions. Chapter 968. The 3rd day of the 7th month was Xia Jingxing's birthday. Everyone in Prince Roy's residence should be busy. It was said that although Xia Jingxing himself did not like it, Emperor Yonglu would hold a banquet for Xia Jingxing at the Azure Heaven restaurant every year. The more Emperor Yonglu valued Xia Jingxing, the more the courtiers respected Xia Jingxing. Of course, Xia Jingxing's performance in these 2 years was worth scrutinizing. The birthday banquet had always been a day to curry favor. Early in the morning, a steady stream of birthday gifts poured into the courtyard. Uncle Tang was busy recording these things in the book and even showed it to Shen Miao. Shen Miao was after all the Wangfei of the residence of Prince Roy. Even though she was in a cold war with Xia Jingxing these days, she still had to look over the accounts. Shen Miao glanced at it and saw a dazzling array of names. No matter if it was a high-ranking official or a low-ranking official, all of them rushed over to curry favor. The Lu and Yi families also sent over congratulatory gifts. Shen Miao sighed in her heart. It was only because Emperor Yonglu and Xia Jingxing had a close relationship that if it was in Mingqi, any official who held a birthday banquet with so many people coming over to congratulate, in the eyes of the emperor, that person would be the first to be suspicious. In the end, when it came to Long Yi, he did it with great fanfare, which made people feel a little surprised. Uncle Tang pointed out to Shen Miao which gifts should be placed in the storeroom and which gifts could be used directly. At the same time he asked Shen Miao, today Furen must not forget to dress up early. Tai Yi's side will send someone to fetch Furen to Bai Xiao Lu. Shen Miao was puzzled. Me? Uncle Tang smiled and said, Madam is our Wangfei and His Highness's wife. Madam naturally has to attend His Highness's birthday. After hesitating for a moment, he stuttered, when a husband and wife quarrel, they quarrel at the head of the bed and reconcile at the end of the bed. His Highness looks angry, but if Madam doesn't go over today, I don't know how long she'll be sulking with me, so, understood. I will go over, Shen Miao said. Uncle Tang then heaved a sigh of relief and exhorted Shen Miao with a few words before leaving. After leaving, Shen Miao finished looking at the account books and packed them up before preparing to return to the room. Jing Zhe came up with a thick face and carefully asked Shen Miao, Furen will definitely go to Bai Xiao Lu tonight, right? Prince Roy's residence is being stared at by others. Now that I have just arrived at the Great Liang, there will surely be people watching the show. If I don't go, it will instead give people the chance to gossip. It is better to go directly and deal with whatever comes. Isn't it better? Jingzhe nodded her head repeatedly. That's right. They want to see what our Ming Qi's Wanfei looks like, so let them see it clearly. A foreign that came out of the general residence, how can anyone casually become a Wanfei? Guyu pulled Jingzhe and glared at her before whispering, the more you speak, the more exaggerated it is. Jingzhe's lips twitched, and seeing that Shen Miao had already walked into the room, she whispered to Guyu's ears, Furen is still feeling awkward and finds so many reasons. If one wants to give in to son-in-law, then just say it first, no one would laugh at it. He then sighed with emotion, Furen is finally willing to admit defeat. Son-in-law is truly capable. Guyu said, speak less of it. When Shen Miao returned to the room, Jingzhe and Guyu also followed in. Guyu asked, does Furen want to pick what to wear tonight? This servant also wants to think about what kind of hair to comb. Shen Miao said, those will be done later. Help me grind the ink. Jingzhe and Guyu looked at each other in dismay. Both of them did not know why Shen Miao was interested in writing at this moment. Speaking of which, Shen Miao was not a person who loved to write and draw, but they would naturally follow their mistress' intention. Shen Miao spread out the letter, and Guyu and Jingzhe then understood that it was to write a letter. Chapter 969. Shen Miao asked Guyu, older Biao's sister should be back soon. Guyu said, Gentleman Gao had sent someone to pass the message and would definitely be able to make it in time for Bai Xiaolu's birthday celebration tonight. Luo Tan and Gao Yang had disappeared for the past few days. Luo Tan had a fiery temper, and Gao Yang had lied to her before. It would take a while for Luo Tan to calm down, so Gao Yang simply abducted her. Shen Miao was also relieved, as she knew that Gao Yang's character would not do anything bad to Luo Tan, and on the contrary Gao Yang was much more dangerous. Today was Xia Jingxing's birthday, and as Xia Jingxing's left and right arm and also Xia Jingxing's friend, naturally he would rush over. Shen Miao pondered for a moment before picking up the brush to write a letter. She was somewhat hesitant in writing, and after writing 2 or 3 sentences, she seemed to feel that it was not good and quickly crumpled the letter into a ball before throwing it into the wastepaper basket. She started to write again, and after writing for a while, she threw it away like before. At the end, one did not know how many pieces of paper were wasted before she kept the brush. After putting the letter into an envelope, she handed it over to Jingzhe. Later, when you see Tai Yi, pass this to him and let him pass it to Xia Jingxing during the birthday banquet. Jingzhe's eyes widened as she did not think that it was for Xia Jingxing. She thought that Shen Miao was writing a letter to Shen Xian and wife, and was feeling strange that the letter was already written 2 days ago, so why was it being written again? Shen Miao said, Guyu, go out for me. She then casually pulled a piece of paper and wrote a few strokes before handing it to Guyu, help me buy these few things. Guyu quickly said yes. Both of them left in a hurry. Shen Miao sat in the room but gave a sigh of relief. She rarely gave in to someone. Especially in this lifetime, the pride in her bones did not allow her to lower her head to others, but this time it was considered that she was in the wrong. Moreover, Xia Jingxing was also a proud person, and between the two of them, one must lower their head first. Shen Miao thought that since Xia Jingxing did not know anything, there was no need for him to lower his head. After receiving so many congratulatory gifts at the birthday banquet, she had to show something. However, Prince Roy's residence was not lacking in gold, silver, and jewels. Her handmade needlework was not considered exquisite. After thinking about it, there were only some simple things. Hopefully, what Octagonal Anise said was true. Xia Jingxing looked picky on the surface but was actually easy to coax. However, what she was most concerned about was that among the guests of the Azure Heaven restaurant, the Yi family had come, so the Yi siblings were also one of them. Whenever the Yi siblings were present, she would always follow closely behind to prevent the two from playing any tricks. It was even more impossible to allow Xia Jingxing to have any interaction with the two when she was not present. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, it was already evening. The people that Tai Yi sent had already started to come over to pick them up. Jingzhe inserted the last hairpin for Shen Miao and smiled, "It is done. Furen will definitely be able to beat everyone today. I'm not a contestant. What's the use?" Shen Miao laughed in spite of herself and looked at the mirror. She then pulled out that pearl hairpin and replaced it with a purplish-red jade begonia. Jingzhe blinked her eyes. "This match is better than that hairpin just now." The image of the first time Xia Jingxing gave her this jade begonia floated in front of Shen Miao's eyes. At that time they were suspicious and wary of each other and were full of suspicion towards each other. At that time Shen Miao was still not clear of Xia Jingxing's background and only felt that he was not the same as the mischievous youth in the rumors of her previous lifetime. Most likely there were too many coincidences and inconceivable wonderful things in life. Now she and Xia Jingxing were husband and wife and came to the Great Liang together. This was something that she would not have thought of at that time. Wearing this jade begonia, perhaps Xia Jingxing's anger would be appeased. It would also make him think that since they had come this step from strangers to husband and wife, there was no need for any other unnecessary suspicions or jealousy. Chapter 970. Shen Miao stood up and there was a slight smile on her face. Ba Jiao and the rest are still waiting outside. Let's go. The few of them went out together and indeed saw that the horse carriage was already prepared at the door with Ba Jiao and Shi Xiang guarding outside. Jingzhe asked curiously, "Is His Highness not going with Furen?" Shi Xiang replied somewhat awkwardly, "His Highness had already gone first and let this subordinate come over to pick up Furen." This made others feel that something was wrong. The prince of first rank and Wang Fei did not go out together but one after the other. Anyone with discerning eyes could see that there must be something wrong with this. Jingzhe and Guyu were somewhat indignant for Shen Miao, but Shen Miao said lightly, "All right, let's set off." She knew what kind of character Xia Jingxing had. He was a proud person deep in his bones, but sometimes he was as stubborn as a naughty child. She would not fuss over these matters, but when she thought of her apology tonight, she felt a sense of unease. Bai Xiao Lu was the largest and most expensive restaurant in Longyi. Not to mention the common people, even those high-ranking officials would have a lot of face if they wanted to hold a banquet here. Thus to hold a birthday banquet here, it was not just one or two tables but almost the entire restaurant. That was considered to be boundless. The more glorious it was, the more expensive it was. The residents of Prince Roy had held banquets here every year for the past 3 years, which was enough to see that the residence was overflowing with wealth. On the main seat, a young man was sitting diagonally as he carelessly listened to everyone's compliments. The purple gold robe almost covered the entire seat. Looking from afar, it was like the flowing night sky, with a kind of gorgeous charm. There were many people toasting and one would naturally be slightly tipsy. However, that pair of peach blossom eyes seemed to be smiling yet not smiling, as if he was slightly drunk but was incomparably clear, making one unable to tell if he was drunk or sober. There were also females among the guests and when they looked at that young man, they could not help but cast gazes of admiration. This Prince Roy was young and was incomparably handsome. He was full of elegance but had a bit of evil charm, which was the type that females were most infatuated with. In addition to his noble status and wealth, he was the type that one would want to rush to his side no matter what. It was a pity that he had already married a wife at such a young age, and she was even a legitimate princess. But, although there was a princess, the position of concubine was still empty. Even if she could not become a side consort, becoming a concubine was something that everyone would fight over. Lu Wanner sat beside Lu Furen and her gaze involuntarily went to Xia Jingxing's side. 2 years ago when she saw Xia Jingxing for the first time, she had already fallen in love with him. At this time, all the males were vulgar and only this person could make her fall in love with him. Unfortunately, the position that she should have stood beside him was occupied by that stupid woman, Shen Miao. Thinking of this, Lu Wanner was unable to restrain her anger and wished that she could tear Shen Miao into pieces. She had the intention to go over and say a few words to Xia Jingxing, but right now there were those officials who were fawning over Xie Jingxing. She was after all an official's young lady, and even if she was more daring, it was impossible for her to fawn over him in front of so many people. He couldn't help but feel a little depressed. In the blink of an eye, she saw Yi Mei talking to Yi Ku, and Lu Wanner's face darkened. As a female, one would always be the most sensitive to the appearance of other females. Lu Wanner thought that she was pampered and spoiled, eating and wearing the best clothes, so when she looked at the females beside her, she would always look down on them. In the entire Long Yi, she thought that she was not much different from a princess and did not even put the Yi family, which was as famous as the Lu family, in her eyes. This was because the Yi family did not have many descendants and did not have any young ladies. But now she heard that the Yi family had recognized a son and a daughter who were wandering outside. Originally Lu Wanner had the mentality of watching a show and wanted to take a look, but after seeing what Yi Mei looked like, she was not happy at all. Chapter 971. Yi Mei was too beautiful. Not to mention her beauty, she also had a special charm that attracted people to look at her all the time. It could be said that she was charming, but it was more naive than charming. It could be said that she was naive, but there was a mature charm to her. Most importantly, Yi Mei was very smart. For example, the two of them had just acknowledged their ancestors and met many madams for the first time. However, they were already able to chat happily with those madams. A beautiful, intelligent woman who knew when to advance and retreat was now crowned with the title of the Yi family's daughter. Seeing how Madame Yi doted on her even though she felt guilty, Lu Wanner felt that she was in a much better position than Madame Yi in terms of status and influence. This made Lu Wanner feel a strong sense of crisis. She heard that this Yi Mei saved Prince Roy's life, so she naturally had a closer relationship with Prince Roy's residents. Lu Wanner gritted her teeth in hatred. All along, Lu Wanner saw Xie Jingxing as her. Even with Shen Miao, Lu Wanner had never given up on this idea. A foreign official's daughter with no relatives or connections in Long Yi, with the Lu family's ability, it would not be difficult to find an opportunity to make her disappear in the future. Thus, Lu Wanner had never put Shen Miao in her eyes. However, Yi Mei was different. One must know that the relationship between the Yi family and the Lu family had always been subtle. They could not be considered friends, but they were not enemies either. If the Yi family wanted to form a marriage alliance with Prince Roy's residents, Lu Wanner quivered and bit her lips tightly, not saying a word. While she was deep in thought, Madame Yi said in astonishment, "Speaking of which, I have never seen Princess Yu before. Why didn't the princess come today?" All the madams started whispering to each other again. Actually, they weren't blind. Since Shen Miao wasn't here, they had already seen it. The only reason why they didn't mention it was because no one wanted to. Now that Madame Yi had brought it up, they naturally started discussing it. Madame Yi said again, "Could it be that she is sick? A few days ago, when I went to pick up Mei and Ku I saw that the princess looked a little haggard. Come to think of it, the prince was sick." As his wife, she was naturally worried. It seems that her health was not good at that time and even the prince did not take care of her. His words caused an uproar. In Madame Ye's words, she secretly mentioned that she had been to the prince's residence before. The prince's residence and the Yi family had a close relationship because of the Yi siblings. He then ruthlessly belittled Shen Miao. When Prince Roy's life was hanging by a thread, Shen Miao did not even take care of him. Even if he was really sick, he was too heartless. On the other side, Xie Jingxing was drinking a cup of wine offered by his colleague. It was unknown if he had heard Madame Ye's words, but the corners of his mouth were curled up into a faint smile. He did not even look over. Someone said, "Could it be that the couple quarreled? How could this be?" Lu Furen smiled amiably. Didn't Qin Wang Fei personally say that Roy Qin Wang Fu would not accept any more people? It could be seen that the relationship between the two of them was very good. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said such words. Since their relationship was so good, they definitely wouldn't quarrel. don't think too much about it. Until now, Lu Furen was still brooding over the words that Shen Miao said in front of Lu Wanner. The more she said it, the more Shen Miao slapped her own face. Saying it like that, wasn't it just separating from her husband? Thus, people should not be so arrogant. When Lu Wanner heard this, her mood from being disturbed by Yi Mei became slightly better. Even though she was not happy with Yi Mei, but if Shen Miao and Xie Jingxing were not good, she would be happy to see it happen. Yi Mei looked at Yi Furen slightly and said, "The prince's residence will not accept people?" Chapter 972. Madame Yi shook her head and whispered, "Qin Wang Fei said it herself." Luo Tan really had a stomach full of anger when she heard it. She had rushed back in a travel-worn state and did not expect to not see Shen Miao. She did not know any of the madams and ladies here and could not rashly say anything to cause trouble for Shen Miao. Now that these people were going overboard, she could not bear it anymore. "Could it be that she is not coming?" a madam asked. Just as Luo Tan was about to refute, she heard a gentle and smiling voice from the door. "Sorry everyone, I am late." Everyone subconsciously looked towards the door. A young lady brushed aside the bead curtain and walked in with a smile. She was young and looked very delicate. Her eyebrows were like crescent moons and her eyes were like limpid autumn waters. Her lips were slightly hooked. She was wearing a purple sunset lily dress with dark patterns, a lilac embroidered robe, a cloud bun and dark purple gourd earrings. She was not dressed extravagantly and could even be considered simple. However, it seemed that with her arrival, the luxurious long hall became brighter. The somewhat dignified purple not only did not go overboard, it contrasted with her snow-white skin and picturesque eyebrows. When she walked over step by step, the hem of her dress swayed and her beauty was compelling. That was a beauty that was completely different from Li Mei. Beauty was in the bones and not in the skin. Li Mei was beautiful, but this lady's beauty was like the spring stream, the summer thin ice, the autumn crescent moon and the winter snow. Beauty was in her bearing and expression. It was as if 1 point more was more and 1 point less was less. It made people unable to take their eyes off her, but at the same time, they felt a biting cold. They did not dare to daydream and could only look up. Shen Miao slightly raised her chin and walked to the seat below the main seat and sat in the middle of the female side. Her expression was graceful. This room full of madams and ladies, as well as high-ranking officials and nobles, paled in comparison to her. She took the wine that Luo Tan handed over and smiled, "Late, punish yourself with a cup." Elegantly drank it clean. Neither servile nor overbearing. Impartial. There was heroism but elegance. Among the people that came, there was Xie Jingxing following behind. Admittedly it was to curry favor, but Shen Miao's actions made others have a good impression and immediately raised their cups and smiled. "Wang Fei has a good bearing. Let us toast together." Luo Tan blinked her eyes and felt that Shen Miao was exceptionally good-looking today and her bearing was exceptionally different. No matter what, she was proud of it and felt that there was light on her face and she could not help but straighten her back. Shen Miao gently smiled and swept her eyes across everyone present, but she remembered that Jing Zhe and Gu Yu had been busy for most of the afternoon for her. She had to use the identity of Prince Rui's consort to get to know everyone in the Longyi royal court, and more importantly, Mei Furen was present. She did not allow herself to have any trace of defeat in front of Mei Furen. This was the dignity that she had brought along with her, a pair of children. No matter how badly she lost in her previous life, this life would not be the same as her previous life. She would not give in even the slightest bit. Li Mei also looked at Shen Miao in a daze and there was surprise in her eyes. Shen Miao faintly smiled at her, but her heart was as cold as ice. This pair of brother and sister actually dared to appear in front of her so openly, over and over again. Did they really think that with the Yi family, they would have nothing to fear? Luo Tan pulled Shen Miao slightly and whispered in a voice that only the two of them could hear, "Biao, youngest sister, did you quarrel with brother-in-law? Why does it look like something is not right?" Shen Miao turned to look at Xie Jingxing. He was listening to a bureaucrat's toast in front of him and was listening indifferently. His eyes did not even look over at this side, it was really full of indifference. Shen Miao was slightly sad. She did not know if Tai Yi had given him that letter. If it was given to him, it would still be like this. Tonight. Shen Miao was also not sure if she could explain it. Chapter 973. Just as he was thinking, he heard an official say, "Since everyone is here, let us congratulate His Highness the Prince's birthday together." Everyone raised their cups and congratulated. Xie Jingxing's lips curled as he drank his cup. One of the madams said, "Speaking of which, Madam Yi has just found Miss Yi and young Master Yi. Miss Yi is so beautiful. She must be talented and has a good relationship with Prince Roy's residence. Why don't you accept Jing? Why don't you show your skills to His Highness the Prince?" These words were somewhat belittling. A young lady from a wealthy family performing in front of everyone. If it was not a proper competition, it would seem frivolous. What's more, Yi Mei was raised by a merchant's family. Who would know about her talents? This Furen was obviously here to nitpick. The Yi family had many political enemies in Longyi. Yi Ke was unhappy and Yi Furen was about to return the compliment when she heard Yi Mei say with a smile, "It is not impossible, but I am afraid of spoiling everyone's mood and dare not make a fool of myself." The Furen who made the suggestion could not wait for her to make a fool of herself and immediately laughed. "How can that be? Thinking about it, it should not be. Isn't that right, Your Highness the Prince?" Xie Jingxing raised his eyebrows and swept a glance over. His lips curled up and he said with a smile that was not a smile, "Dance." His tone was somewhat casual, as if he was instructing a dancer to entertain others. Yi Mei's eyes flashed and she stood up. She first bowed to Shen Miao and said, "Since everyone is in such a good mood today, I do not know if I have broken the rules by coming to Longyi. I am not very sensible, but I am willing to make a fool of myself to make everyone happy. After all, I am in the mood to play around." Her words were well behaved and seemed to be thinking for others. There was some naivety, but there was some charm and provocation. But Shen Miao saw the provocation in Yi Mei's eyes. "I have learned a type of water sleeve dance from my adoptive mother in Qinzhou. Today I will dance it for everyone to see," she said. Shen Miao lowered her head slightly and a sneer flashed across her lips. Yi Mei quickly changed her clothes and came out. She was born with a somewhat charming appearance, but she was wearing a snow-white long dress, and a wide belt wrapped around her waist, making her extremely slender. To think that she was dressed in filial piety, she was indeed complimented by this snow-white dress, which made her look even more beautiful and graceful. Rice paper, brush, and ink were placed on the 4 neatly arranged screens. The maidservant who played the zither was also present. When the first note began, Yi Mei shook her long sleeves and began to dance. Shen Miao's nails almost dug into her palms. The ink wash dance was Yi Mei's best dance. Yi Mei was proficient in the 4 arts of zither, chess, calligraphy, painting, and painting. In the imperial harem, being the only pet naturally had its charm. The ink-water dance was just one of them. When dancing, the sleeves would be dipped in ink and painted on the xian paper. After the dance, the painting would be completed. It was elegant and unique. The beauty was beautiful and picturesque. But this water sleeve dance was the blood of Shen Miao's heart, a thorn in her eyes, and every time she saw it, the pain was unbearable. In the beginning, when the Xiong Nu came to request for a marriage, Fu Xiu-yi wanted to marry Wan Yu over. Shen Miao used both carrot and stick and even used the Shen family to threaten, but Fu Xiu-yi's heart was like a boulder and was unmoved. Wan Yu thought for a long time and came up with an idea. She learned a song and personally played it for Fu Xiu-yi. That song was something that Wan Yu searched for a long time and was changed by Shen Miao again and again. What Wan Yu wanted to say was all in the song. She only hoped that Fu Xiu-yi would remember the father-daughter relationship and not be so ruthless in his actions, and give Wan Yu a way out and dispel this idea. But on that day, Shen Miao invited Fu Xiu-yi to Kuan Ning Palace and let Wan Yu play it for Fu Xiu-yi. Just after she finished playing, she saw a trace of emotion in Fu Xiu-yi's eyes and Mei Furen came uninvited. She smiled as if there was no one else present. "So your majesty is here. This official's concubine learned a new dance today and wanted to dance it for your majesty to watch. Since her ladyship is also here, then let us watch it together." She danced charmingly and he watched with deep affection, but he completely forgot about Wan Yu and Shen Miao who were still waiting. Shen Miao would always remember the disappointment in Wan Yu's eyes. Just a young female of 10 years of age, the vitality in her eyes slowly faded and almost returned to calmness. On the second day, Wan Yu came to kowtow to her and said, "Empress mother, do not waste your thoughts for this son. This son is willing to have a marriage." How could anyone be willing to have a marriage? It was just that Wan Yu had seen Fu Xiu-yi's ruthlessness and Mei Furen's methods earlier than her. Perhaps Wan Yu felt that even if she rushed to the future without knowing the future, it would be more comfortable than staying in the palace and being stabbed in the dark. Finally, Wan Yu was free. But Shen Miao would never be able to let it go. The snow-white long sleeves fluttered in front of her, but Shen Miao felt that the long sleeves were not stained with ink. Every drop was the blood of Wan Yu's heart. It was also a thorn in her eyes, a nail in her bones. Chapter 974. Li Mei's waist was soft and her movements were charming. Her pair of bright eyes seemed to be looking at someone else, but at the same time, it seemed like she wasn't looking at anyone else. She was like a butterfly, tickling people's hearts. Thinking that the butterfly was going to stay in his hand, he didn't guard against it, only to see the colorful butterfly flapping its wings and flying away. The female guests could not take their eyes off, not to mention the males. Men always liked good-looking things. His eyes were almost glued to Li Mei's body. Yi Furen and Yi Maokai also gradually revealed a proud expression. To be able to give birth to such a daughter with both looks and skills that made all the males in the great Liang flock to her like ducks, that was also a kind of ability and not everyone had this ability. Lu Wanner was filled with jealousy and hatred as she gritted her teeth in anger. Shen Miao however looked coldly at Li Mei who was dancing and her thoughts were drifting back to the previous lifetime. The first time she saw Mei Furen was when she returned to the Ding capital from the Qin country. She only heard that there was an additional imperial concubine in the palace, but everyone respectfully addressed her as Mei Furen and did not mention the title of imperial concubine. This was somewhat unusual. Hearing that Fu Xiu-yi doted on this Mei Furen, even though Shen Miao's heart was sour, she did not think much of it. Thinking that with Fu Xiu-yi's cold temperament, no matter how much he doted on a person, it would not be too much. After that she went to the imperial study to look for Fu Xiu-yi and wanted to talk to Fu Xiu-yi about a serious matter, but saw Mei Furen throwing Fu Xiu-yi's paperweight in the imperial study. On the day she returned to the palace, Mei Furen claimed that she was ill and did not come, so this was the first time she saw her. Shen Miao saw that that female was so beautiful that every frown and smile was like a painting, but she was arrogant and barbaric and actually threw a tantrum in the imperial study. Shen Miao thought that Fu Xiu-yi would get angry and Fu Xiu-yi indeed showed an angry look, but that Mei Furen actually turned around and left. At that time Shen Miao thought that such a strong female actually dared to talk to Fu Xiu-yi like that. With this kind of temperament, how long could she live in the inner palace? At that time she was busy asking about Wan Yu and Fu Ming's situation and did not pay much attention. She only felt that that female was an extremely beautiful and extremely arrogant person. But even if Fu Xiu-yi was angered to this state, on the morning of the second day, Shen Miao saw Fu Xiu-yi accompanying Mei Furen for a stroll in the imperial garden and his words were filled with pampering which made one stunned. She had never seen Fu Xiu-yi like this before and Fu Xiu-yi was not a person with a good temper. Fu Xiu-yi's gentleness was only in front of his virtuous talents. Towards women, he had never been patient. But Mei Furen had angered him yesterday and on the second day, she was able to make Fu Xiu-yi smile. It was at that time that Shen Miao suddenly realized that this woman was not only beautiful and arrogant, she was extremely dangerous because she could play with one's heart in the palm of her hands. No matter if it was towards a man or not, in short, she had successfully captured Fu Xiuyi's heart. Sure enough, as the days of Shen Miao's return to the palace grew longer, she gradually discovered that this Mei Furen was somewhat scary. She looked arrogant and rude. She did not restrain her temper, but she just happened to maintain her rudeness at a safe level. Fu Xiuyi only felt that her true temperament was hard to tame and became more and more fascinated. And when facing Shen Miao, Mei Furen was rude, ridiculing and tit for tat. Because of her relationship with Fu Sheng, she had repeatedly provoked the relationship between Fu Ming and Fu Xiuyi. Unfortunately, Fu Xiuyi's heart had always been biased. What was the true face of Mei Furen? Shen Miao looked at the charming woman in front of her. In this life, she had become the daughter of the Yi family. She was cautious, clever, and knew when to advance and retreat. She no longer showed her arrogant side. But, was this really her true face? After dealing with Mei Furen for a lifetime, Shen Miao knew how terrifying she was. She was a sly female like a fox. Whatever she wanted, she would never fight for it directly. She would go around and around, with 9 twists and 18 turns, and at the end she would still show off her cleverness and even put the blame on the person that she harmed. Chapter 975. What was she trying to do with her actions today? Did she want Xie Jingxing to be like Fu Xiuyi, fascinated by her at first sight and fall in love with her the second time? Shen Miao sneered in her heart but could not help but look towards Xie Jingxing's direction. With this look, she met with Xie Jingxing's gaze. Xie Jingxing's gaze was on Shen Miao, and most likely he did not expect that Shen Miao would suddenly look at him. He paused for a moment before turning his head away and continued to look outside as if nothing had happened, as if he was hiding something. But he did not see the person who was dancing enthusiastically in the middle. Shen Miao was surprised for a moment, and an indescribable feeling welled up in her heart. She had 120% hatred towards Mei Furen and naturally had a hidden sense of inferiority towards herself. In terms of appearance and style, she admitted that she was not as good as Mei Furen, thus the previous Fu Xiuyi did not hesitate to sacrifice her. And Xie Jingxing was several thousands of times better than Fu Xiuyi. If Li Mei also took a fancy to Xie Jingxing, Shen Miao thought that it would be a disaster. But Xie Jingxing's gaze was on her and did not look at Li Mei. How was this different from Fu Xiuyi? If it was Fu Xiuyi, as long as Shen Miao and Mei Furen appeared together, he would not even look at Shen Miao. People were indeed different from each other, just like how she and Li Mei were different. Xie Jingxing and Fu Xiuyi were also different. As she was thinking like this, she did not even know when Li Mei had finished dancing. She only heard the warm applause in the hall and then raised her head. She saw Li Mei standing there with a slight smile. Her forehead had some beads of sweat and her cheeks were pink, making her even more moving and beautiful. And behind her, the ink painting was completed. There was a Qilin stepping on the clouds, and it was a picture of a birthday wish. The painting was lifelike and it was done with great effort. Yi young lady is indeed talented and skilled. A Darren from the scholar residence said, the painting is lifelike and is a top-grade masterpiece. The young ladies in my scholar residence do not have this ability. The dance is also not bad. A Furen quickly followed, Yi Furen is really blessed. This Yi young lady is like you. Not only is she beautiful, she is also talented. Look at our Long Yi, he dances so well and paints so well. He's really one of the best. Madame Yi accepted it with a smile, but Lu Wanner twisted her handkerchief in jealousy. Her eyes were filled with unwillingness. Another person said, I wonder what your highness thinks of this painting? Everyone looked towards Xie Jingxing. Yi Mei also looked towards Xie Jingxing's side, but she saw Xie Jingxing holding a wine cup and looking out the window. She did not know what he was thinking as he was lost in thought and did not listen to the discussion at this end. Your Highness? Gao Yang reminded him. Xia Jingxing regained his senses and asked, what is it? Let me ask you, what do you think of Miss Ye's birthday painting? Gao Yang asked. Everyone was a little embarrassed. Yi Mei was doing her best to show off her talent and even drew a painting, but Prince Roy was simply distracted and didn't pay attention at all. This was undoubtedly too disrespectful to Yi Mei. When Xia Jingxing heard this, he swept a glance at the picture and slightly hooked his lips. Not bad. His perfunctory attitude could be seen even from 3 floors away. Yi Mei's smile was a little stiff, but when Shen Miao saw it, a trace of a smile flashed in her eyes. For someone like Xia Jingxing, how could he be distracted in such an occasion? Such a focused person must have done it on purpose. Even though she did not know why he wanted to deliberately embarrass Yi Mei, Shen Miao was slightly happy because of his action. Yi Mei caught this hint of her smile. Yi Mei stared at her and suddenly laughed softly. Speaking of which, when I was living in Prince Roy's residence, I heard that Wang Fei was also talented. Chapter 976. Suddenly she changed the topic to Shen Miao. One only heard that Wang Fei's archery skills are excellent and never heard of anything else. Since today is Prince of First Rank's birthday, why not Wang Fei join in the fun and let us broaden our horizons? My daughter has admired Wang Fei for a long time, she said somewhat uncomfortably. Anyone who saw it would think that Yi Mei had heard of Shen Miao's rumors and worshipped her, wanting to witness it with her own eyes. But Shen Miao was a daughter of a military family. It was one thing to be good at archery, but no one had seen her dance before. If she did it, perhaps she would make a fool of herself, but if she did not respond, it would prove her reputation as a boorish person. Everyone looked at Shen Miao. Shen Miao gently smiled. I am the Wang Fei of Prince Roy's residence. How can I be like a courtesan, playing and singing and allowing others to watch? In an instant, the hall was silent, and Yi Mei's face turned red. Originally, singing and dancing in front of the ministers was a loss of face, but because Yi Mei was the daughter of the Yi family and was born beautiful and talented, everyone ignored this point. But for Shen Miao to say it out loud, it was very subtle. Yi Furan's and Yi Mao Kai's faces were ugly. Yi Furan wanted to speak, but once she opened her mouth, would it not be going along with Shen Miao's words and saying that Yi Mei was a courtesan? Lu Furan and Lu Wanner were somewhat rejoicing in others' misfortune. They were most happy to see Shen Miao and Yi Mei quarreling. Xia Jingxing looked at everything with a smile and did not seem to feel that there was anything wrong with these words. He did not intend to mediate and just watched with folded arms. Luo Tan felt that Shen Miao seemed to be targeting Yi Mei, but there was a vague pleasure in her heart. It was originally Xia Jingxing's birthday, but this Yi Mei danced here and overtook the host. Moreover, she took the initiative to ask Shen Miao to sing and dance, so why would she ask others to do the same? Ji Furan looked at Shen Miao and her heart was anxious. Xia Jingxing's birthday was a banquet for all the officials, and Shen Miao made the atmosphere so stiff that others would only blame the residents of Prince Roy for not following the rules and damaging the reputation of the entire residents of Prince Roy. They would also say that Shen Miao was jealous and haggled over every ounce with a daughter of the Yi family. Yi Mei hesitantly stood in the same place. She slightly frowned, which made people feel pity. A good beauty was forced into such a situation, which made people feel very unbearable. Some of the men in the hall felt that it was unfair, but they also thought that they were righteous. They wanted to be a hero to save the beauty and speak up for Yi Mei. Shen Miao swept her eyes across everyone in the hall and took in everyone's expression. Yi Mei had this kind of ability, she never needed to say what she wanted. She frowned and sighed, urging the people around her to sacrifice their lives for her. Today, she rejected Yi Mei. She was afraid that the entire Long Yi would stand on Yi Mei's side the next day. How could he let Yi Mei get what she wanted? She stood up and smiled under everyone's astonished gaze. However, Miss Ye's kindness is hard to refuse, so I'll reluctantly accept it. It just so happens that I learned a song a few days ago, so I'll play it for Miss Yi. How could it be played for, Missy? Madame Lu said with a smile, shouldn't it be to congratulate His Highness on his birthday? This song is very sad. Shen Miao said lightly, it does not seem like a celebratory tune and is not suitable to welcome one's birthday. It is just that I felt that it was good a few days ago, so I learned it. Since Miss Yi admires me, naturally good things should be shared with one, right? She looked at Yi Mei with a smile. Yi Mei also smiled softly, naturally. These two people exchanged words back and forth, as if there was an invisible knife and sword shadow. Yi Mei was charming and Shen Miao was dignified. Each had their own beauty, and for a moment one could not differentiate the primary and secondary. Shen Miao held up her sleeves and walked to the middle as Yi Mei withdrew. Jingzhe quickly found a chair for Shen Miao. Shen Miao looked up and asked, bring the zither over. Chapter 977. Guyu only came out after a long time and said, Bai Xiao Lu only has a Jiao Wei Qin, Furen. The Jiao Wei Qin had a special sound and Guyu was very clear that after following Shen Miao for so many years, when would she see Shen Miao play the qin? On one hand, she was secretly hating this young lady of the Yi family for not having good intentions and wanting Shen Miao to do such an elegant thing. At the same time, she was making things difficult for Shen Miao, hitting one's face at one's own to impress others. Especially in this foreign land, no one would be courteous to Shen Miao on account of the Shen family's face. Most of the people here had ulterior motives and could not wait to throw stones at someone who was down. Especially with Yi Mei's unique ink dance in front of her, Shen Miao would pale in comparison no matter what she did. No problem. Just take it. Shen Miao said. When the surrounding Furens and young ladies heard this, they started whispering. Didn't one say that one is naturally rough, to actually want to play the qin? Should be wanting to compete with the young lady of the Yi family. Really competitive. Ai, it is a pity for the residents of Prince Rui. One fear that they will lose face today. The people of Ming Qi are really not able to be seen in public. Do not even know how much weight they have. Their voices were very soft but they could not hide the ridicule in their eyes. Luo Tan was full of confidence. Even though she had not heard Shen Miao play the qin before, she inexplicably felt that Shen Miao was omnipotent. Since she could say it, she would definitely be able to do it. Ji Yushu however whispered to Gao Yang, sister-in-law really know how to play the qin. In the beginning when the Feng Xian pawn shop investigated, there was not even a teacher who could play the qin for her. Self-taught? That is too powerful. Gao Yang shrugged his shoulders, I also do not know. Let's wait and see. Pei Lang was also one of the guests at the banquet. Guang Wentang did not teach the zither but Shen Miao did not choose to learn the zither. Pei Lang had heard the teachers there complain that Shen Miao could not even differentiate the zither strings. Now seeing Shen Miao gladly accepting it, it was hard to hide the surprise in his heart. He could not help but look at Xie Jingxing, thinking that Shen Miao was so competitive because of Xie Jingxing. Xie Jingxing slightly frowned, the hand that was holding the wine cup slightly tightened. Shen Miao burned incense and washed her hands before lightly saying, this song is called Song of Blood. It was written by a young princess who was forced to go to the enemy country for a marriage alliance and was forced to condescend herself to marry the enemy country's leader who was over 50 years of age. She was uneasy about the future but was helpless and hoped to change her imperial father's mind. This song was composed by her heart filled with grief and despair. Her voice was light, like the vague moonlight, but after Mei Furen's passionate dance, it made one quickly calm down, as if with her words, one had entered the story. She plucked at the strings. The sound of the scorched tail zither was thick and heavy. It was not as clear and melodious as ordinary zither sounds. It was hard to move one's heart when plucked, but she played it bit by bit, playing it for a long time. It was clearly an inexplicable zither sound, but it was heart-stirring. After the first sound of the plucking, the hall became quiet. She opened her mouth slowly and sang slowly. The vast Yangtze River flows from the west, the water's surface, the clouds mountains, and the pavilions on the mountains. The mountains and rivers connect, the pavilions face each other, the arrangement of heaven and earth. Walking in the moon, walking in the stars, eating the autumn in the lonely home, worries on the pillow, worries on the horse, rest after death. Her voice was usually gentle and as clear as water, but at this moment there was a sense of pain, making one's eyes turn red and their heart sour. Along with her singing, along with her zither sound, it was as if a young princess appeared in front of one's eyes. She was born cute but was forced to wear a phoenix coronet and a red robe, bitterly sitting in a corner of the palace. That palace was towering, serene and heavy. At the age of innocence, one had to welcome a not easy fate. Chapter 978. She boarded the carriage and bade farewell to her mother. The emperor was heartless. She sacrificed her daughter for the great cause and became a royal princess. However, she was faced with a marriage that she could not decide. It was a long journey away from the capital. She lifted the curtain in loneliness. She looked at the eagles flying by, the fish swimming in the water, the wind, the rain, and the clouds. Everything was freer than her. In the near distance, the moon and flowers fly in the blink of an eye. Holding the farewell cup in her hand, her eyes were filled with tears of parting. I just told them to take care of themselves, but the people of the evil sect can't bear to let you go. Shen Miao's tears slowly flowed down. She was born delicate and dignified, with skin as white as jade. Under the light of the lamp, her bare hands were playing with tears. Her expression was clearly cold, but it seemed to be filled with endless suffering. Words could not be spoken, nor could words be sung. Her clear eyes were black and white, clear and limitless. However, it made her look even more like a flower in the rain, trembling and making people want to protect her. Her singing made everyone in the hall speechless. Their eyes reddened and their hearts felt stifled. They no longer had the joy they had when Li Mei was dancing. But suddenly the strings turned, the notes became rapid, and her words sharpened. Corrupt the country's monarch, treacherous officials monopolizing power, open the river to become the root cause of the disaster, the bureaucracy's laws are excessive, the criminal law is heavy, the people are resentful. Cannibalism? What about seeing? Thieves become officials, officials become thieves, fooling around with the wise. How pitiful. It would be better to see this building collapse with my own eyes, turning it into rubble. Rise and fall for 50 years, and look at the ruined monument with cold eyes. Her eyes were cold and fierce, and her voice was filled with tears of blood. It was as if she was weeping and complaining, as if she was talking about the past. Then, the killing intent in his eyes was concealed. His heart was filled with resentment, but he had yet to make up his mind. Strand by strand, they all flew towards the seated Yi Mei siblings. In the end, Wan Yu did not play the entire song for Fu Xiu Yi to hear, and the rest of the song was completed by Shen Miao. In the cold palace, she took the broken zither and played it for him to hear. The first half was Wan Yu's plea, and the second half was her accusation. In the night, there was no end to the noise, but those people could not hear it. Now, here you are, listen. Listen carefully. Does this tune sound even a little familiar? Was there a trace of fear? Xia Jingxing put down the cup and his gaze was as sharp as a blade. Yi Mei felt a little cold. What did the lyrics have to do with her? But why did it seem to be directed at her? Why did she feel uneasy in her heart? When the song was finished, the faint zither sound stopped and Shen Miao suddenly stopped and raised her eyes. The hall was silent for a long time. Who dared to say that Princess Roy was nameless and did not know how to play the zither or chess? Being able to play and sing to silence the entire hall was also a skill. But why did it make one's heart sink? It was as if they had heard a sad story. No matter how hard they tried, they could not be happy. Shen Miao opened her mouth warmly and said, "This song is not considered joyous and should not be played on a birthday, but since young Lady Yi wanted to hear it, one specially played it for young Lady Yi. She looked at Yi Mei. Is young Lady Yi satisfied? Everyone's gazes fell on Yi Mei. Yi Mei was restless. These words were as if she was forcing Shen Miao to play the qin to embarrass herself, but she had to admit that Shen Miao was not rough. Playing the zither was not difficult, but it was difficult to move people's hearts. Her zither had already moved everyone in the hall, and if one were to go against one's conscience and say that it was not good, it would be disadvantageous. Princess is indeed as rumored to have unparalleled talent. Yi Mei smiled. This song of blood is really admirable. But she was somewhat puzzled. Why is the first and second half of this song of blood so different? The second half of the song seems to have changed. The second half was intense, resentful and desperate, like the last cry of a trapped beast, making one tremble. Shen Miao moved her fingers. The front and the back were naturally different. The front was Wan Yu's sorrowful words to move Fu Xiao Yi, but the back was her painful loss of her daughter, and after being banished to the cold palace, she complained about this pair of poisonous man and woman. Chapter 979. Shen Miao smiled. The first half was about the feelings of the little princess who was forced to marry off. The second half was about the despair and indignation of the birth mother of the little princess, the Empress, who lost her daughter. I see. Everyone was enlightened. Someone else asked, this song is really touching. Where did the princess consort hear this story from? It really makes one sigh. It was just sung by a passing storyteller. Shen Miao smiled. I just felt that this story was too heavy, so I wrote it down. Oh. A young lady could not help but ask, since it is a story, what was the ending of the story? What was the ending of the princess who was married off? Shen Miao replied indifferently, the ending of the story was that the princess died on the way to the marriage and the empress was banished to the cold palace. Not long after, she was given a pair of white silk scarves and died. Everyone else sighed and said that this story was too tragic. Madame Yi was a little unhappy. Shen Miao's performance was actually incomparable to Yi Mei's. Yi Mei was charming and her dance was warm and moving, but Shen Miao only sat quietly and sang a few lines and attracted everyone's attention. Furthermore, she cleverly told a story and stole Yi Mei's limelight. This way, Yi Mei's inkwash dance lost out. Everyone looked at Shen Miao with a slight change in expression. Women were always emotional. Shen Miao told such a pitiful story and the sound of the guqin seemed to firmly grasp people's hearts. Everyone felt much closer to Shen Miao. Madame Yi said, a joyous day makes people feel sad. Shen Miao also smiled. It is my fault for disturbing everyone's mood. She walked to the table and took a wine bowl. That wine bowl was used by the men to drink. She also poured a full bowl for herself. The light yellow wine reflected her youthful appearance. A toast to apologize. She raised her head and downed the wine. Xie Jingxing's gaze suddenly darkened. He wanted to get up but had no choice but to suppress it. Shen Miao raised her chin. This bowl of wine was hurriedly poured and some of the wine that could not be swallowed in time flowed down her neck and wet a small piece of her clothes, but it was still a beautiful and delicate beauty that made one's heart break. Her eyelashes were long and her eyes were clear. Forget it. She placed the bowl of wine on the table in an elegant and heroic manner. I'll drink first as a sign of respect. This bowl of wine was well done. In the future, the heroic spirit in the hearts of her colleagues was ignited. They all picked up their wine bowls and smiled. Qin Wang Fei has a good capacity for liquor. Cheers. Shen Miao smiled faintly, but that smile was somewhat unfathomable. She glanced at Yi Mei and her brother. Yi Mei and her brother were also staring at her. She looked outside. This bowl of wine had ignited the heat of the entire Bai Xiao Lu. After drinking till one's ears were hot, Shen Miao stood up and said to the female side of the banquet, first go out to get some fresh air. He left on his own accord. Star Anise and Fennel were waiting for her outside as she walked towards the pavilion not far away. Shen Miao's throat only felt a burning sensation. That good wine was the strongest, but she did not feel drunk. It was just that the corners of her eyes seemed to be filled with hot tears from the spiciness. That cup of wine was a toast to her youngest daughter, the little princess who died tragically during the wedding ceremony. These people who were listening to the play felt that it was extremely tragic. Then what about her? What about Wan Yu? When she was alone with the wedding procession, did she feel even more despair, like she was in a raging fire but there was no source? She thought that she could endure it, but in the end she could not. As a mother, she would rather die 1,000 times than to let Wan Yu and Fu Ming suffer. Chapter 980. She walked step by step. The moonlight was as cold as water, but it could not blow away the desolation in her heart. There were already wine and food baskets in the pavilion. Octagonal Anise said, "Furan, the fireworks have been bought." Shen Miao complied. Just say it. She would be free after saying it. No matter how Xie Jingxing saw her in the future or what she had to face, she could endure it. Nothing would be worse than her previous lifetime. She could even endure those. Not being understood, estranged, and being looked at like a monster, what did it count as? Just as she was thinking, she heard a voice behind her. "Are you waiting for the prince of first rank?" Turning around to look, it was Pei Lang. Pei Lang glanced at the things on the table in the pavilion and smiled. "Did not think that you would do such a thing." Shen Miao asked him, "Why did you come out?" "Not used to this kind of place." Pei Lang said, "Cannot drink and plan to return first. Did not expect to see you preparing these." He said, "Are you planning to reconcile with the prince of first rank?" Shen Miao nodded her head. "Previously I often thought that there would not be anyone that you would submit to. Now I know that it is the prince of first rank." Pei Lang's smile had a trace of imperceptible sadness, but when he looked at Shen Miao again, it was still as light as the clouds and wind. Even though it is surprising, one also feel that it is not surprising. Shen Miao smiled gently. At the same time, Xie Jingxing, who was in by Xiao Lu, swept a glance at Tai Yi and was about to get up to leave. Ji Yushu pulled the corner of his clothes. "Today you are the birthday star." "Why? You want to escape at the last moment?" "Let go." Xie Jingxing glanced at him. Ji Yushu obediently let go. "What exactly are you going to do?" "Be so mysterious." Gao Yang said, "Why do you care so much about him?" Xie Jingxing, however, looked sideways and looked at the Yi siblings who were talking to Yi Furan. His eyes could not help but darken. Shen Miao's attitude towards this pair of siblings was really too strange. It seemed to have exceeded her own rationality and became like another person. This pair of siblings from the Yi family did not seem to be simple. Even though Mo Yujun could not find anything wrong, it was because of this that it made others feel suspicious. He suddenly thought of the letter that Tai Yi stuffed into his sleeves. That letter was written by Shen Miao to him. She didn't mention anything about apologizing. She just said that she had something to say to him at the birthday banquet in a pavilion in an alley not far from the Azure Heaven restaurant. Whether it was an apology or not, to Shen Miao, it was a big concession. Xie Jingxing was originally strong in appearance but weak in heart towards Shen Miao and was easy to coax. Putting on a cold face was also an act, but at the moment his heart was happy. He thought that if he didn't punish her for 3 days, she would tear the tiles off her roof. After hanging her out for a while, she really became more sensible. However, he couldn't bear to make her sad. It was just that she was dressed too flirtatiously in the hall just now, and the admiring gazes of the men that fell on her when she was playing the guqin. It just didn't make him happy. In the pavilion, Pei Lang and Shen Miao finished their conversation and intended to leave. Just as he walked down the steps, he bumped into an 8 or 9-year-old child. Pei Lang was caught off guard and was knocked down. Star Anise and Fennel were waiting for Xie Jingxing to come over at the other side. Shen Miao thought that in this late night, Could it be that one of the young masters from the Azure Heaven restaurant came out to play? Seeing Pei Lang groaning softly, it seemed that the fall was not light. She decided to go over to take a look. Just as she walked in front of Pei Lang, she saw that child lying face down on the ground. She did not know how he was as Pei Lang was calling him. Shen Miao also squatted down and was about to speak when that child suddenly raised his head with an ominous glint in his eyes. Shen Miao was caught off guard and saw a silver snowy light stabbing towards her. At this moment it was too late to dodge, but she saw Pei Lang suddenly hugging her and turning over, his whole body protecting her under his body. Following that, there was a painful groan. But he refused to let go and protected Shen Miao tightly. That child did not care and kicked Pei Lang away, turned the knife and stabbed towards Shen Miao's body. A voice came from afar and the child's hand moved to the side. When he looked at Shen Miao again, it was the same as Pei Lang, the blade had entered her abdomen. Xia Jingxing was walking towards this direction with Fennel and Star Anise. Fennel said, "Furen has been waiting for you for a while. Fearing that you are still angry, she has been waiting for you patiently. When you see Furen, you must be considerate of her." Xia Jingxing was expressionless, but a trace of smile flashed in his eyes. Bypassing the alley, they saw the pavilion. Before they got close, there was a strong smell of blood. Xia Jingxing's footsteps stopped. Star Anise and Fennel were also surprised. The moonlight was as bright as a lantern, illuminating the ground. It was supposed to be a refreshing and elegant scenery, but at this moment, it made one feel a chill from the bottom of one's heart. Large swathes of blood, and familiar faces. Chapter 981. Tonight in the residence of Prince Roy was exceptionally unusual. The servants that were coming and going in the courtyard had a grave expression, as if the sky had collapsed. Even the wind at night seemed to be icy cold, causing one's forehead to break out in cold sweat. Tai Yi followed beside the young male and whispered, "Master, no traces were found." Xia Jingxing swept a glance at him. The calmer his expression was, the more a black storm seemed to be brewing in his eyes, as if it would engulf the person in the next moment. He asked in reply, "No?" Tai Yi shuddered, and just as he was about to speak, he saw Gao Yang walking out from inside. Gao Yang's body still reeked of alcohol, and it was obvious that he was hurriedly called over during the banquet. Luckily his eyes were clear and he was not drunk. He walked straight over and said, "Sister-in-law is fine. The knife wound did not injure any vital parts and had already ordered someone to bandage it. Most likely she fainted from the shock and had taken some calming medicine. She would be able to wake up tomorrow morning." Xia Jingxing's eyes were slightly at ease and Tai Yi also gave a sigh of relief. He then heard Gao Yang saying, "But Pei Lang's injuries were very serious. The knife wound was too deep and there was a lot of blood. I have done everything that could be done. Whether he could pull through or not, it still depends on him." The meaning of his words was that whether Pei Lang could wake up would depend on whether his life was tough enough. "It seems that it was Gentleman Pei who blocked this knife for Furen," Tai Yi said carefully. Even though Pei Lang's position in the residence of Prince Roy was somewhat subtle, one could not help but be grateful to him. This is not a good thing. Gao Yang looked at Xia Jingxing, who had a cold expression, and said, "If he really did not wake up." With sister-in-law's temperament, she would feel guilty in her heart for the rest of her life. Shen Miao was a person who was very clear about her feelings and did not like to owe favors to others. If one owed something to others, one would definitely return it. Pei Lang really saved with his life. In the future, when Shen Miao woke up and knew about the matter, if Pei Lang was not alive, one really did not dare to think what would happen to Shen Miao. "Has Long Yi sealed the city gates?" Xia Jingxing asked. "Sealed," Tai Yi said. "The MOU Army's secret department were all dispatched, but since the surrounding people did not discover it and Furen did not even have the time to call for help, that person either does not have martial arts or his technique is very brilliant." Xia Jingxing said, "There is no need to think. Capture him alive and beat him to death. The person behind this, check again. Tai Yi left under orders and Xie Jingxing looked at Gao Yang again. You stay here tonight. If the situation is critical, there is no need to walk back and forth. Gao Yang said, I know. He then took a look at Xie Jingxing. You should also rest first. His expression was very solemn. Not far from the Azure Sky building, he dared to attack Princess Roy. The courage of the other party was too big. Not only that, even Prince Roy's residence was not in their eyes. Most likely only the Lu family would have such guts in the Ding capital. But the Lu family would not start from Shen Miao's side, thus the meaning behind this matter was somewhat profound. No matter what, this was a signal that the hidden forces finally could not hold back and began to move. And the first person that they chose to sacrifice in the residence of Prince Roy was Shen Miao. But at the moment Xie Jingxing did not have the mind to care so much. He walked into the room and saw Shen Miao lying on the boat. Her face was pale and her eyes were closed with her eyelashes hanging down, making her look very weak. He sighed and sat down at the side of Shen Miao's bed. There was a food basket on the table in the room and inside was the longevity noodles that Shen Miao instructed the Azure Sky Building's kitchen to specially make for her. Octagon Anise said that one was afraid that it was spoilt, so it was specially filtered with cold water. But now that so much time had passed, even if it was filtered, it was already stuck together. Chapter 982. Xie Jingxing thought about it and reached out to open the basket and took out the bowl from inside. The noodles in the bowl had already condensed into a paste and one could vaguely see the white noodles, green vegetables, and an egg yolk. When it was just taken out of the pot, it must have been fragrant. Now that it was cold, it was not tasty. Xie Jingxing took a pair of chopsticks and started to eat in big mouthfuls. Star Anise and Fennel said that Shen Miao had asked Guyu to buy a lot of fireworks, wine and dishes in a small pavilion not far from Bai Shaolu. It was the best place to watch the fireworks. She also specially instructed people to cook longevity noodles at the right time, presumably to make amends. The two of them fought for a while and in the end it was Shen Miao who lowered her head first. Star Anise also said that Shen Miao did not have a good time these days and Xie Jingxing's heart was relieved. He was a man and had to be more magnanimous and would not haggle over the past matters. Who knew that before the words of apology could be said, he saw Pei Lang and Shen Miao lying in a pool of blood. It was hard to describe the feeling at that moment. It was obviously the height of summer but one felt a chill from head to toe and lacked the courage to go forward to confirm. Fortunately nothing happened. Xie Jingxing's noodles tasted like wax and finally finished the bowl of noodles. He placed the empty bowl on the table and held Shen Miao's hand. But he regretted it. If he did not want to be angry with Shen Miao, why would Shen Miao want to make amends with him? If she did not go to the pavilion beside Bai Shaolu, perhaps this would not happen. Outside, Luo Tan had received the news and was hurrying over. When she saw Gao Yang, she first asked, "What happened to my youngest Biao sister?" "She is fine." Gao Yang said. Pei Lang blocked a knife for her. "Teacher Pei?" Luo Tan was startled. "How is Teacher Pei?" "Not very good." Gao Yang shook his head. "Even you cannot save him?" Luo Tan asked. Gao Yang smiled bitterly. "I am a physician and not a bodhisattva. If everyone can be saved, no one would go to King Yama's palace." Luo Tan said, "Today I only know that youngest Biao's sister quarreled with brother-in-law and said that it was because youngest Biao's sister did not visit brother-in-law when he was ill." The Furens in Bai Shaolu were all saying that Biao Biao was not good and said that Biao Biao was cold and heartless. What did they know? When Biao's youngest sister was at the strange Taoist priest's place asking for medicine for brother-in-law, who among them saw it? "You are being unreasonable." "Strange Taoist?" Gao Yang understood the crux of her words and asked, "What strange Taoist? What do you mean by asking for medicine?" Luo Tan was stunned for a moment and was annoyed that she had said the wrong thing. In a moment of carelessness, she thought that Shen Miao did not allow her to speak and said, "Nothing, I just casually said it. I will go and see youngest Biao's sister first." Finishing, he walked towards the room where Shen Miao was lying. Gao Yang pulled her back. "Don't go. Xie Jingxing is inside." "Ah." Luo Tan lowered her head, suddenly thinking of something, said, "Are you staying here tonight?" "I want to stay here and see what's going on with Pei Lang," Gao Yang said. "You can go back first." Luo Tan shook her head. "I am not going back. I will stay here and wait for youngest Biao's sister to wake up." Gao Yang knew that Luo Tan had a stubborn character and did not persuade much. This night, in everyone's heart, was exceptionally long. The matter of Shen Miao and Pei Lang being assassinated was concealed and everyone in Bai Xiao Lu did not know about it. They only thought that Xie Jingxing had left early and did not know that it was a sleepless night in Prince Roy's residence. This night, the servants were anxiously waiting for the ending. In the summer, the days were long and the nights were short. When the sun started to shine and the birds in the courtyard started to sing, the two rooms were silent. Chapter 983. Xie Jingxing looked at Gao Yang and asked, "What is the matter?" Gao Yang's brows were tightly knitted as he took Shen Miao's pulse and then Pei Lang's pulse. In front of everyone in the room, he shook his head. "Strange. Pei Lang's injuries are too serious, but until now there is no movement. There should be some reaction, but it is like he is asleep. The princess' flesh and blood were not injured, and after taking the sedative, she should have woken up, but until now she has not woken up." "So?" Xie Jingxing's face was as heavy as water as he stared at Gao Yang aggressively. It is somewhat strange." Uncle Tang said cautiously, "Could it be another poison?" "It is just that physician Gao did not discover it previously." "Impossible." Gao Yang flatly denied, both of their meridians are not signs of poison. Instead it is faintly discernible and one cannot see any problem, but they have not woken up. "Then what can be done?" Luo Tan was somewhat anxious. "My youngest Biao's sister cannot keep sleeping like this. There must be a reason." Gao Yang glanced at Xie Jingxing and Xie Jingxing's gaze made him somewhat unable to withstand it, so he could only say, "Wait for another half a day and see." In this half a day, Xie Jingxing could only stay by Shen Miao's bedside, and not to mention half a day, even when it was deep into the night, Shen Miao still did not wake up. It was the same for Pei Lang. Uncle Tang asked Gao Yang, "Gentleman Gao, what is going on?" Even if Furen and Gentleman Pei did not wake up, there must be a reason. "Even you cannot see the reason?" Pei Lang's heart was filled with unspeakable bitterness. Until now Shen Miao and Pei Lang did not have any symptoms, but they just could not wake up. Even a physician would have to judge based on the patient's reaction, but other than the faintly discernible pulse, it was like an ordinary person sleeping. How could he see it? It was just that facing Xie Jingxing's increasingly cold and sharp gaze, Gao Yang also felt the pressure. Afterwards Ji Yushu also rushed over when he got the news, and everyone was worried together. Luo Tan could not help it and was so anxious that she was about to get angry. She was about to cry as she said, "Could it be that I have offended something these days? First it was brother-in-law and now it is youngest Biao's sister. If anything happens to youngest Biao's sister, how can I explain to Gugu and Gufu?" She blew her nose again. "I came here and swore that I would protect little cousin sister. Who knew that little cousin sister would end up in such a state? I'm so ashamed." Gao Yang patted her on the shoulder. "It's not your fault. If I stay by her side, at least no one will be able to take advantage of her." Finishing, she thought of something and said angrily, "There is also brother-in-law. If he was not angry with Biao youngest sister, he would not let people follow Biao youngest sister to attack Biao youngest sister." Gao Yang was helpless. The matters between Xie Jingxing and Shen Miao was really not something that he could meddle in. It was a fact that Luo Tan was in a state of rage, and it was a fact that Shen Miao refused to wake up. If youngest Biao youngest sister does not wake up, then he will regret it. Luo Tan said angrily, those Furans are biased. He is always the person beside youngest Biao youngest sister's pillow and still do not believe that youngest Biao youngest sister has no feelings for him. She thought about it and clenched her fists. After thinking about it, there is no need to hide this matter from brother-in-law. Youngest Biao youngest sister had done so much for him, but in the end she was taken advantage of by others. If youngest Biao youngest sister is really not good, then one must let her speak clearly. If youngest Biao youngest sister does not speak, then let me speak. What do you want to say? Ji Yushu asked curiously. Luo Tan glared at him. Of course it is a bigger credit than that pair of siblings from the Yi family. Luo Tan went to find Xie Jingxing in a huff and Gao Yang was afraid that she would cause trouble, so he quickly followed behind. When they reached the door, they saw Xie Jingxing coming out of the room with a calm face. Ever since Shen Miao's accident, Xie Jingxing's expression had not changed. Chapter 984. Luo Tan said, Prince Rui. She did not call him brother-in-law anymore. Xie Jingxing swept a glance at her. Shen Miao did not wake up and his heart was vexed. He had no patience with others and his face was awe-inspiring. But Luo Tan had a temperament that did not care about anything, and when her temper flared up, she was not afraid of even the heavenly emperor. She said, Biao youngest sister did not allow me to tell me previously, but now that she is lying on the bed, if she does not say it, I will say it. I do not have any scruples and did not think as much as she did. It would be too much of a loss to hide what I did and not let others know. Uncle Tang, Tai Yi, and the rest who rushed over after hearing the news were also standing at the side and looked at Luo Tan with some surprise. Those Furans all said that when you were bedridden, Biao youngest sister did not come to see you. You felt that you were left out and Biao youngest sister is a heartless person, so you were unhappy and got angry with her? Luo Tan stared at him and said, but you do not know that she did not come to see you during those days, not because she did not want to but because she went out of the city to seek medicine for you. Going out of the city to seek medicine for Xie Jingxing. When Xie Jingxing's eyes landed on Tai Yi lowered his head and did not dare to look at Xie Jingxing's eyes. Previously it was because Shen Miao let the servants hide it, but after Shen Miao returned, she inexplicably started a cold war with Xie Jingxing. Once Xie Jingxing's heart turned cold, the surrounding people would not dare to touch him at this juncture. One wanted to wait for a few days before speaking, but one did not expect such a thing to happen. Speak clearly. Xie Jingxing took a step forward. Luo Tan said, you do not know, right? It was said that there was an expert in Phoenix Head Manor who could go against the heavens and change one's fate. She glanced at Gao Yang. At that time Gao Yang was refining the antidote for you, and Biao youngest sister gave you the 3 vitality recovery pills, but it could only protect your life for a while. If the antidote was not found within 10 days, your life would not be guaranteed. But on the 4th day, your condition was critical and the imperial physician said that you would not last past 7 days. Biao youngest sister heard the legend of the expert in Phoenix Head Manor and brought me and a few guards to Phoenix Head Manor. Xie Jingxing's gaze shook. What kind of person was Shen Miao? She was rational and astute in analyzing the pros and cons. Moreover, she did not seem to believe in ghosts and gods. She actually believed in such absurd words like defying the heavens and changing one's fate. She was really desperate and anxious. The Phoenix Head Manor isn't far from Longyi, but it's extremely difficult to find the place where the expert lives. That day we rushed through the night and almost lost our way in the forest. There was also a pack of wolves, but Biao Mei was not the least bit afraid and insisted on lighting a torch to find the way through the night, fearing that she would not be able to come back in time to save you. On the 2nd day, we found that master. That master used the art of Chiman Dun Jia to bring me and Biao Mei, who had no martial arts, into the valley. He said that there was a spirit grass that could cure hundreds of poisons, but his little cousin had to pay a price. Actually, the price was not that difficult. It did not require money or lives. We need people to pick out the bugs from the red sleeve grass in the valley and fertilize them one by one. Gao Yang and Ji Yushu were surprised, and Uncle Tang and Tai Yi were even more shocked. They had never heard of these things from others and did not know of the origins. Uncle Tang's heart was suddenly enlightened. No wonder Shen Miao was in such a sorry state when she returned to the residence. Compared to Yi Mei, it was even more unbecoming of Rui Wang Fei's decency. At that time he did not know the reason, but now he understood. It turned out that Shen Miao did not sleep that night and was busy being a gardener because she was seeking medicine for Xie Jingxing. For a moment there were some sighs. To be able to condescend to do all these, other than being able to bend and stand tall, what was more valuable was the intention. Chapter 985. But Luo Tan's anger seemed to be vented the more she spoke. Does it sound like there is nothing much? But she had been spoiled since she was a child. Filling the entire valley, even those peasant women were not able to do it alone. She did not sleep earlier and immediately started to move and was busy for the entire night. You people who live extravagantly, most likely have never touched a fat pole in your entire life. Since she could do this, why is she lower than that pair of siblings? Luo Tan looked at Xie Jingxing and said, "It is true that the Yi siblings saved you, and they do have a life-saving grace, but my youngest Biao sister is not inferior. Say that she was not by your side, but you can go and ask the servants in the residence of the prince of first rank. Before she left the residence, how many days did she stay by your bedside? Did she leave? Did she take care of you without rest? Could it be that she could not be compared to the Yi siblings that she only met once? Now that my youngest Biao sister has fallen to this stage, I feel wronged for her. When His Highness the Prince of First Rank married her back to the Great Liang, what did he promise? But you can't even believe her. Even though she has many faults, there is one point that is beyond doubt. Her sincerity is beyond doubt." When Luo Tan finished speaking, her face was already flushed red, as if all the suppressed anger in her heart had been swept away. She then looked at Xie Jingxing's expression. There was no sadness or joy and his expression was calm. But the calmer he was, the more one felt a chill. It was as if under the calmness, there was a boundless storm. "Finished speaking?" he slowly asked. This tone was so cold that Luo Tan could not help but shrink her neck. Gao Yang quickly stood up and said, "Now is not the time to pursue this. The urgent matter is to think of how to wake both of them up." Xie Jingxing sneered, "Is this not simple? Just capture the Yi siblings." Ji Yushu was surprised for a moment. "Third older brother, what do you want to do?" Since she is abnormal for the Yi siblings, then there must be a problem with the Yi siblings. No matter if they are the ones behind the scenes or not, there is no reason to spare them. Xie Jingxing turned around and was about to leave. But he was pulled back by Gao Yang. "No. Now they are not the powerless Li family but the Yi family. What is the outcome of alarming the Yi family? Let go." Xie Jingxing said coldly. "Calm down." Gao Yang said, "If Wang Fei really hates the Yi siblings, she must have compromised for so long because she did not want to harm herself. Aren't you dragging her down?" "Not bad, third older brother." Ji Yushu also chimed in, "The Yi family is not some small family in Longyi. If you take action like this, one fear that it will bring trouble to the residence of the prince of first rank. She can endure but I cannot." Xie Jingxing said, "The Yi family has touched their bottom line." Third older brother. Ji Yushu still wanted to persuade, but suddenly Ba Jiao's voice was heard from outside the courtyard. The usually smiling maid now seemed to be a little flustered. "Master, someone is coming." Tai Yi frowned slightly as if he was dissatisfied with Octagonal Anisa's loss of composure. He asked, "Who is it?" "It's the Taoist priest whom Madame met the other day at Fengtu Manor," Octagonal Anise said hesitantly. "What?" Luo Tan's eyes widened. Ji Yushu, who was grabbing onto Xia Jingxing's sleeves, could not help but let go and looked at the octagon priest. Octagonal Anis nodded his head. In the hall, that strange Taoist priest who was dressed in tattered clothes was touching this and looking at that, as if it was the first time he entered the residence, and his eyes were filled with curiosity. Shi Xiang and Song Yang stood awkwardly at the side. They were acquainted with Qi Yen Taoist priest. But when Qi Yen Taoist priest entered the door, he used such a familiar tone to establish a relationship with the both of them, making them somewhat uncomfortable. Chapter 986. When Xia Jingxing and entourage came to the hall, Priest Qi Yen was preparing to remove the gem eyes of a red-crowned crane from a vase and asked Fennel, "Can this poor Taoist take this away?" "Priest Qi Yen." Luo Tan shouted when she saw him. When Qi Yen saw her, he smiled, "Young lady Luo, long time no see." Luo Tan secretly pondered in her heart. It was obvious that not much time had passed, but she could not care about other things at the moment and said, "You came over because you know that something happened to my youngest Biao's sister and specially came to change her fate?" Even though Luo Tan felt that this priest Qi Yen was deliberately making things difficult for others, but he seemed to have some ability, or else Shen Miao would not believe the other party so much. Priest Qi Yen looked at the silent Xia Jingxing behind Luo Tan and smiled. "This poor Taoist cannot change fate and can only read fortunes. This young brother, what do you think?" "I do not believe in the heavenly way," Xia Jingxing said. "The heavenly way is not trustworthy, so why would humans persist in seeking answers from the heavenly way?" Priest Qi Yen shook his head and said, "This foreign's fate is strange and others are unable to fathom it, and it is all up to her own choice. Neither you nor I can do anything about it." Luo Tan could not understand Priest Qi Yan's words and quickly asked, "Taoist, what should my youngest Biao sister do now? Is the spiritual herb that I gave her still there?" Priest Qi Yen asked. Luo Tan was puzzled. "When we returned, the Prince of First Rank's poison had already been cured, so naturally the herb was useless. One do not know where youngest Biao's sister placed it. This servant seems to know," Jingzhe said, and brought everyone to Shen Miao's room. Sure enough, she found a dusty box under the dressing table and opened it to take a look. There was a stalk of ordinary-looking medicinal herb inside. Luo Tan's eyes were sharp and said, "It is this. Take it and fry it." Qi Yen stroked his beard. "Wait." Xia Jingxing looked at the strange Taoist. "Why should I believe you? You cannot believe this poor Taoist, but you have no other choice." Taoist priest Scarlet Flame let out a long sigh. "This herb was found by this madam, but when I first found it, I said that it would be futile. Even without this herb, you would still be safe and sound. There is no such calamity in your fate, and everything she did was in vain." Everyone was stunned when they heard. However, it was not in vain. Strange Taoist priest's face showed some relief. "Those who love others will always love them, those who save others will always be saved." If she had been a little bit insincere and perfunctory back then in the valley, she wouldn't have obtained this stock of spiritual herb and she wouldn't be here today. In the name of saving you, this spiritual herb is actually saving her. She sacrificed herself for you. At this moment, Luo Tan faintly heard some clues and asked, "You mean, you already knew that this spirit grass would not be used on the prince, but on my Biaomei? Youngest Yen would Tian's Furen, and you have Tian and Yan's fate and son, so Furen." Strange Taoist looked at Luo Tan and said with a smile, "You are worth teaching." Xia Jingxing stared at him. "You want her to be a herb farmer?" There was a murderous intent in his eyes. The Taoist took a step back and hid behind Gao Yang. He coughed twice and said, "She has such a calamity in her life, and this poor Taoist has reduced it to the smallest. Compared to her life, isn't it much easier to be a herb farmer? But why is she still not awake?" Gao Yang was puzzled. "I am also a doctor and have checked her illness, but I could not find the source. There seems to be nothing wrong with her. She should have woken up today, but she has not woken up for so long." What is the reason? The Taoist said, this poor Taoist said that this is a calamity in her fate. What do you mean by tribulation? I don't understand. Luo Tan said, why don't you tell us directly, after my youngest Biao's sister ate that herb, when will she wake up? Qi Yen smiled, the herb is not for her to eat, it is for another injured person to eat. The other injured person, could it be Pei Lang? Xia Jingxing whispered, if you dare to play tricks, I can take your life now. The evil aura is too heavy. Qi Yen shook his head, that person gave up his life for Furen, but it was because of some entanglements in his life. This Furen obtained the herb and just happened to be able to settle this debt. Then what about my sister-in-law? Ji Yushu asked. Strange Taoist looked at Shen Miao, who was lying on the bed. Her expression was calm as if she was asleep, but her face was pale and there was a feeling of unreality. She picked out the bugs for the red sleeve grass in my valley, but she could not pick out the bugs in her heart. This calamity is a blessing for her and also a misfortune. This poor Taoist had met her 3 times and was worried about her twice. This last meeting with her is for the sake of this fate. The matters of the human world are not perfect, there are regrets and unwillingness. She wanted to seek an answer but no one told her. Strange Taoist narrowed his eyes. Now she has found a way and the answer that she is seeking is right in front of her. No one can help her. You cannot, she cannot, and this poor Taoist cannot. So wait patiently. The Taoist looked at Xie Jingxing, that's your fate. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.